morning, everyone. It's Saturday, which means it's time for yet another Salty Saturday morning live stream. I am your host, Matthew Kadish, the producer of the Salty Nerd Podcast, and I'm very excited today to get to introduce my fantastic panel of nerds, starting with my brother from another mother, the man who shares my name, Matt Bader74. How you doing,
No,
buddy?
you share my name. I had it first. I'm here, man. Let's do it. I'm trying to get the coffee in. So
get it.
You rocking a new hat today?
No, it's not a nerd hat, and I just turned it around because if I had my 49ers logo on the front, people would all be wondering what the heck I was trying to push. Sports ball. I don't know what that is.
Sports ball.
You know. So yep. Here we are. There's Tom.
Right on.
God, you're a good-looking guy.
And we got our queer representation on the panel today, Brian from the Popcast.
That's
He's our
right.
beard and our shield. How you doing, buddy?
Beard and a shield. Look at that. I double duty it, bro.
Oh, we also forgot to mention that you're our Latinx representation.
Latinx.
Well.
Right.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Latinx? All right.
Latinx. I'm a Latinx. I'm a Latwinks.
Latwinks. And you know how we always say that we watch movies so you don't have to? Well, our next panelist reads books so you don't have to. He is the one and only Crimson Rogue, Kyle, who is graciously joining us yet again this morning. Kyle, great to have you back. How you been?
Thanks, Matt. I'm doing all right. Slowly torturing myself. My latest project has been much more substantial than I would have planned. I'm taking on if I can gloat about myself here for a moment, I'm taking on the Book Talk Darling Lightlark, a project that I severely underestimated. The video is currently 6.5 hours long, and I'm not done with it.
Wow. Yeah, your videos are getting longer and longer the worse books you're reading, aren't they?
Literary long, man.
And our good friend from Midnight's Edge, the hardest working man in live streaming, Tom Connors. How you doing, Tom?
I'm here. It's Saturday.
I feel like I have to keep whipping out the blackmail fodder to get you to appear on our stream, but I appreciate it.
I
Every
didn't
time
even make
you do.
the thumb. I look like
Well,
a thumb.
Well, few people make the thumbnail because it's busy work for me to have to do it. But anyway, let's get to those of us who are in the chat right now. We got Anthony Mark, as always. Anthony, so good to see you, sir. We got Danny's mom, Penny. We got Chris Dennison, Keely Chow, Richard Lawson, Fred Blogs, Thrasher613, the Orlando Dragon, our good friend, top donator, Astro Nerd Boy. We're going to be talking about him in a bit.
Well, he
Greg
was.
Daniels, Scotty Dub. Oh, my God. Yeah,
He was.
We talked about that. Richard Lawson, Mexican Iron Man, Mighty Orbots, Regis. Wow, what a way to start the stream. Before we get to that, I have to give Astro Nerd Boy some props. So, as always, we have our leaderboard up here. We last week Astro Nerd Boy chatted $150 super chat, so he claimed the top spot as our number one super chatter. Thank you, Astro Nerd Boy. And of course, the $100 club for everyone who's super chatted $100 or over. We have Scotty Dub and Bob Dorsey. Our regular, our top donators, our most consistent donators are Joker Voice and Fluffy Panda. And our top super thanks person is Backyard TARDIS. So I got a quick announcement to make. So aside from the $100 club, for the top donator and top super chat spots starting next month, it's going to be for the previous month. So the most consistent donators for April are going to get their names up there, and the top super chatters from March, I should say, are going to get their names up there. So we were getting a lot of messages saying like, oh, like, you know, I can't get my name up there because I don't know, like, you know, it's impossible to catch up with some of these people. So we're doing it month to month now. So if you want to see your name up there next month, we're starting fresh. So basically, you have a chance to get on the leaderboard. We also have our top contributor, Scotty Dub, who has been a huge supporter of the channel. We want to thank him very much. And Matt, we might as well just get into it right now.
Do you want to do Mike's or Scott first?
We're going to do Scott. We'll get to Mike's in a bit. But Scotty Dub has, right out the bat, dethroned Astro Nerd Boy. $200 super chat. All hail the Salty Nerds, General Kadish and Baron Vader. And happy Saturday as well to the indomitable Latinx, Sir Brian, Lord Popcast, Count Tom of the Midnight's Edge, and King Crimson. Hear ye now, O excellent Astro Nerd Boy. I hereby declare the bar raised, sir. Mic
my
drop. Scotty,
You guys-
you are beloved here on the podcast.
You guys are
Thank
out
you
of
so
control.
much for that. You will get the top spot next week, sir. I don't know how anyone can dethrone you at this point. That's
$201. That's how.
$201, Bob. Yeah.
I love
crazy.
you, but I don't love you long time, man.
Just so you guys know, like the $100 club can't be dethroned. You're always going to be listed up there, and top super chats will always be the very first up there. So if you guys want to, be in the top spot, all you got to do is just beat that last super chat. But Scotty Dub throwing down the gauntlet. I don't think we're going to see another top super chatter for quite some time. I could be wrong, but Scotty Dub, wow. Thank you so much, sir. That is very generous. We really, really appreciate it. So you can go ahead and take that down, Vader. Real quick, though, we want to thank our sponsor for today's episode. I know that a lot of you guys out there are probably sick of us talking about this, but we are being sponsored by Extra Wallets. And we actually have, let me just raise my thing. So I actually got my Extra Wallet in the mail. And you can see it right here. This thing is really, really cool. It's very sleek. It's very thin, and it's very well made. I'm quite impressed with it. It is made with like Italian leather, carbon fiber, and space age aluminum, something like that. Very sturdy wallets. I was very impressed with them, and they even have like the little pop-up thing, so like you can hold up to like 12 cards in there. Vader, do you have yours on you?
It's downstairs.
Okay.
I forgot. Sorry, but yeah, they're really neat.
So they have RFID blocking, so like you can't get hacked. You can't have any of your cards hacked while you use it. And you can also order a special locator card along with the wallet. So if you lose your wallet a lot, or you're afraid of getting your wallet stolen or whatever, you can actually use this to geolocate your wallet. It's very impressive. But Matt Vader, we've actually got something even more impressive going on with Extra Wallets. And that is that we learned how to do giveaways on live streams recently.
Yeah.
We tried it last Tuesday with often hilarious results.
Yeah.
But I want to let everyone in the chat know that our new giveaway is something that you might be interested in. We're going to be giving away a free Parliament Extra Wallet, $75 value, which is the one I have right here. It's the leather bound one. And all you have to do to enter for this giveaway is type in hashtag Salty Saturday in the chat, and you'll be automatically entered into the giveaway for this thing. And the way it works is at the end of the episode, at the end of every show, for the next for as long as the promotion lasts, we're going to be picking a winner. And from those winners, we're going to put them in a randomizer, and we're going to pick the ultimate winner who eventually gets the wallet. So basically, every time you guys come into chat, type in hashtag Salty Saturday, you're going to be entered to be like a contestant for the ultimate prize. And then at the end of, which is at the end of the promotion, which is I think 5 weeks from now, something like that, we take all the winners from every episode, put them in a randomizer, and then pull the winner out of that one. Now, in addition to this, so every time you type in the hashtag, you only get one chance to enter, right?
Tell me more, Bob.
Yeah. So if you contribute to our live stream via super chats, every person who does a $10 or more super chat gets entered into the giveaway automatically, right? So if you're supporting our channel or something like that, you get entered in. But for every $10 increments, you get your name put in once. So Scotty Dub just got his name put in 20 times for the Extra Wallet giveaway. So basically, we're just expanding it out. We're trying to make it easy for everyone to enter and win and stuff like that. And also, in addition to all this stuff, if you are a channel member, okay, we're going to be giving away one of our hats, okay? So all you need to do to be entered into the giveaway is be a member on our YouTube channel of our club. And at the end of April, we're going to draw a winner from our membership roster. And if you're a member of the $100 club up here, you automatically get sent a hat. It's just one of the perks of you guys, supporting the channel. And for everyone who gets their name on stream, we're also going to have a special certificate where we will send you like a little acknowledgement for you guys being on the leaderboards of our live stream as being some of our top supporters, just because we want to acknowledge you and appreciate you and stuff like that. So I'm sorry that was a long pitch, but I wanted to get it out there and let everyone know that, we're doing this stuff to try to acknowledge the members of our community who want to support our channel. So I've bored Matt Vader long enough.
You need to
And
go over
Brian.
this stuff before you just announce stuff on streams, bro.
Well, if you checked your text messages, you might have seen
okay.
that I tried to.
All right.
But regardless, that's all the housekeeping out of the way. I want to let everyone know that I appreciate you guys sticking around for this.
I could have done my taxes in that
I
time.
know, right? Jesus.
You could have. That's why I'm getting it out early, man. So we're all thriller, no filler for the rest of the show. Okay, guys. So before we get into our Picard and Mando stuff, let's talk about the thing I really want to talk about, which is Grace Randolph getting called out for being a dirty, stinking liar again. All right. So I don't know if you guys saw this on Twitter, but
I did.
So Grace Randolph.
My
me
buddy
see if I can-
Disfather, yeah.
Yeah. So Grace Randolph, because she blocked me, I have to do this incognito. But she put out a tweet saying, "Weird. Despite recent insistence that it's not casting, there's a casting breakdown going out to all talent agencies, etc. for Superman Legacy. For Clark, Lois, and Jimmy, early 20s, open to all ethnicities, aka Black Superman." And then we got the narrator who says, "Didn't James Gunn debunk you on this?" And then he said, "He did it again." And we actually have the tweet from James Gunn over here, where he basically says, "This is untrue. We haven't begun casting other than making lists, and it's not limited to people in their 20s. And the funny thing about this is that Grace Randolph comes back, and she says, "Then he should investigate because someone is sending out breakdowns. So weird." And then the narrator says, "Or maybe you should investigate your source." And at this point, Grace Randolph doubles down and says, "Oh no, my source is impeccable. I got it confirmed by a second source. This is 100% true, period." So James Gunn is saying this is untrue. And Grace Randolph has come out and saying no, this is 100% true. I know because 2 people told me. And basically it's rumored that the casting director for DC or whatever is like her source or what have you. But she's sticking by her sources, even though James Gunn has not only come out and debunked her multiple times in the past, but specifically for the casting of Superman Legacy, he's saying we haven't sent out anything yet. Like, we're just in the process of brainstorming, making casting lists and stuff like that. Now, Brian, I know that you don't have a lot of respect for Grace Randolph, so
No.
let's hear your thoughts on this.
She's a dirty liar. She just says whatever she wants for clicks. She constantly has an agenda all the time. Everything she does is agenda driven or driven on getting clicks. She purposely fights with the head of a studio because she doesn't like him and she doesn't like his anything about him. And then she just says nonsense. She constantly lies. How many directors and people high up in Hollywood now have just said the words Grace Randolph is a bullshit artist? How many times? So many people have literally said on record that Grace Randolph is wrong and she doesn't know what she's talking about. Yet people continue to respect this person, and I don't know why.
Yeah, you know, did I ever tell you guys the story of why I got blocked by Grace Randolph?
No.
So what happened is, years ago, this was right after The Last Jedi came out, she did a video where she was talking about a source who informed her about a special conference call where Kathleen Kennedy got yelled at by Bob Iger and she was going to get fired and all this other stuff. And the way she structured the video, she talked about what her source informed her was, which was that there was a conference call that took place at Pinewood Studios in the UK that Kathleen Kennedy was on with Bob Iger. But then she started giving her speculation about what could be happening, which is Bob Iger firing Kathleen Kennedy. But she made it sound like it was what the source was reporting to her as opposed to what her own theories were. And so when I called her out about it on Twitter and I said, hey, you were being kind of dishonest about this thing and the way you presented the information, she immediately blocked me. She didn't respond to me. She just blocked me because she knew I was right. and so like she has a long history of throwing crap at the wall, seeing what sticks, and then saying like, oh, I was right about this, therefore my sources are legitimate. But all the wrong stuff that she kind of glazes over. Crimson, do you follow Grace Randolph at all? Do you have a dog in this fight?
I hadn't even heard of her until I saw that actual chain, like whenever it happened, like a week ago or whatever. I've got no real dog in this fight, but frankly, if Brian is saying that she's this dishonest, considering the amount of research and analysis that the Podcast brothers have done and how good they are at their job, shill. If he's saying that she's dishonest, I'm going to have to take his side on this and just take that at face value.
Tom, you're pretty dialed
I feel
into
honored.
You're pretty dialed into this stuff. What's your take on Grace Randolph basically saying that James Gunn is lying?
So, I think what we need to remind ourselves here is that my reporting on everything DC since before Zaslav has come into office has been hella spot on compared to Miss Randolph's, which has been not even close. The only thing that she remotely got right was the whole Henry Cavill thing, right? And as at the time, because a lot of people asked me, I said, yeah, I heard that he hasn't signed shit yet. That's all I know. Because there may not be anything to sign. I have no idea what's going on. Well, then we learned what was going on. But the outside of that, like, she comes up with some of the weirdest nonsense ever. And then when it doesn't pan out the way that she wants it to, she's kind of quickly becoming, what's his name? Mike Zero?
Mike Zero.
Mike Zero.
Yeah.
The female version of Mike Zero, it seems like.
The Hollywood version of Mike Zero. That's rough.
She may have had a couple of sources at one time, but I sure would like to know what sources these were, because she's only, her claim to fame is that she worked for Marvel Comics, I think it was, for like a half a minute. And that was it. I don't know what else she's really done.
No, she's hosted a couple of like mainstream entertainment shows and stuff like that.
Where?
I don't know. Like if you Google her, you'll see like the different shows that she's been on. But she didn't really break out until she started her own YouTube channel, and it's because of her access or like whatever.
I don't know. I personally find her annoying, but that's nothing neither here nor there. Her reporting has been very spotty at best, let's say.
I'd go so far as to call it fraudulent at times.
You're probably not wrong. I'm just trying to be semi-centrist here on this, but yeah.
I don't trust either one of them.
Yeah, Vader, before we get to your thoughts, can we call up Mexican Iron Man Super Chat?
You are really bossy today.
Yes, I am.
You're starting to piss me off. I'm not going to lie.
Okay, that's fine.
Hold on. My mouse is... There we go. All right. Boom.
All right, so Mexican Iron Man for $9.99, which gets you one extra entry into the raffle, my friend. Number one Mexican fan of this show, not Latinx. Hey, guys. So, Mexican Iron Man is proudly anti-Latinx, which pisses Brian off to no end because he is our Latinx representation on the panel.
Come on, bro.
Need to stand in solidarity with your Latinx brothers, Mexican Iron Man. Okay, so Matt Vader... what's your thoughts on Grace Randolph?
I don't have a lot of thoughts. I just think that they both have agendas, and they're both going to say what they need to say to push those agendas. Grace Randolph does what Grace Randolph does, and that's mostly make up shit. And of course she's going to say my sources are the best sources in the world, just like we would do if somebody accused us of making stuff up, and we actually had sources. We don't have sources. No, I don't think anybody has any actual real sources except for a few people. But the whole sources thing is kind of nonsense for some of these people. I'm not saying Grace doesn't know people in the business. I'm sure she does, but of course she's going to defend herself when she gets accused of lying. And James Gunn is going to say stuff like, well, we don't have anything going on with these movies that are out there. Well, he has to say that too, because he has to defend his office. It's all games. It's all chess pieces and checkers. It is what it is. But Grace has a track record of being a bullshit artist, and that's what she is. And
can I say this much? I'll give her this much. There is some times where she'll get stuff that is like, I legitimately have heard similar things, or I know that's a fact because we find out later. But I think she's not taking into consideration that some of her sources might be biased, which is something we run into all the time, and we always have to disseminate. I don't think she's doing that, right? Like, I'll give her the benefit of the doubt that she may know some people in the know, but she's definitely not taking into consideration what camp any of these people may be coming from.
Mm-hmm.
Because it seems like a lot of her news comes from the pro-Snyder, anti-gun camp, right? And they are putting out a lot of misinformation right now. That's all I can say on that part. But
Yeah.
So Grace Randolph was a correspondent for Movie Line, and she was also the entertainment correspondent for WTNH News 8 and appeared on Good Morning Connecticut multiple times. In addition to being associated with Bleeding Cool and her YouTube channel Beyond the Trailer. It's kind of funny, on her Wikipedia, it talks about the James Gunn controversy here, which is Grace Randolph is known to have a contentious relationship with film director James Gunn. In November 2012, Randolph advocated that Marvel Studios fire Gunn for offensive comments he made in 2009, despite Gunn apologizing for his remarks. In 2017, Randolph claimed that Gunn did not give Thanos a large role in his Guardians of the Galaxy films because he did not find the character interesting. Gunn denied her claim and later stated that Randolph likes to just make stuff up that he said because it helps her get clicks. After Randolph claimed that the character Bane would appear in Gunn's Peacemaker series, Gunn said that the character does not show up at the end or anywhere and has 0 lines. After Randolph reported that audience reactions to Peacemaker were less than stellar, Gunn responded that Grace Randolph will spout bullshit. And this is yet another one in the long line of Grace Randolph spouting bullshit about a James Gunn project, because she's really pushing the Black Superman narrative. I don't know if you guys have heard this, but like the rumor out there is that James Gunn's Superman, which he's writing and directing, is going to be the Black Superman from like the alternate Earth. Brian, you run a really fantastic DC-centered channel. Can you speak about those rumors a little bit?
Yeah, the Black Superman thing was put to bed a long time ago. So they were gonna run with Black Superman. They were planning on doing it.
That was under J.J. Abrams, right?
Yeah, back with J.J. Abrams and the old regime at WMD. And when that changed, that was shelved and canceled along with everything else. I guess it wasn't formally announced as canceled, but JJ moved on. He started working on it's no longer part of his slate according to the website. So if they're still working on a Black Superman, then it's not JJ Abrams no longer. It would be James Gunn, I suppose. But I'm not sure why he would do that. That it wouldn't. It was someone else's idea. It wasn't even his idea. It makes no sense for him to put that version of Superman out, especially if he's doing this this soft reboot with the Flash. So he's using the Flash and Flashpoint to sort of rebuild DC in his own image without having to fully reboot it. It's definitely gonna wipe out our version of Superman, and it might wipe out our version of Batman and even Wonder Woman. If that's the case, replacing him with J.J. Abrams' passion project makes 0 sense. It doesn't. I don't even know why she would even try to die on this hill. It's a bad idea in general, and it makes no sense. So whoever's telling her that is maybe they're just trolling her, and she's biting the same way some other scoopers have bit on 4chan leaks, and then look stupid 2 months later.
Kyle, Crimson Rogue, we haven't had you on the podcast for a while, so I wanted to ask you, what's your thoughts overall on like the DC universe and James Gunn taking over and his kind of like 10-year plan that he has for the franchise?
Well, it's good that we have somebody in charge of things who actually feels invested, enthusiastic, because I remember the announcement video he made, what was it, like a month and a half ago? He seemed like he was actually really interested in exploring and expanding all these different story ideas, many of which I had never heard of, so I have no idea how viable or successful they could be. But the fact that he's got that degree of energy, and I at least have enjoyed his movies so far. Guardians of the Galaxy was surprisingly enjoyable. He has made what I would argue is the best movie in the DCEU lineup with the Suicide Squad. He's got a real talent for taking disparate characters and putting them together in a mess and keeping everything coherent and fun, which is something that I think the DC movies have absolutely been lacking. They felt directionless, they felt grimy, they felt a little sluggish, and that's when they're not abject failures like Wonder Woman 1984. So I'm trying to be optimistic about him taking over. I generally like his work, so we'll see what happens.
You know, speaking of DC stuff, so I know other than Brian, I'm probably the only one who has seen the Shazam sequel. And a lot of the buzz around that movie is the fact that it really underperformed. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that, like, the announcement that DC was getting rebooted and that this movie ultimately doesn't matter kind of affected it. But I found on Twitter this morning a really interesting tweet from David F. Sandberg, who directed the sequel. And he says, "This is so weird. People keep arguing they saw Shazam with the throne scene in it, but we cut it early on, never finished the visual effects, DI, and the music is taken from another scene. It's only ever been a deleted scene released as an extra. I don't think we even had it in test screenings." And you can see this scene right here. Now, when I was in the theater, I specifically remember this scene. It was in the theatrical cut of the screening I was in. And so, like, a lot of people are saying, like, you know, is this the Mandela effect? Like, did people actually see this? And I'm like, I specifically remembered that scene. It was in the theater. Brian, do you remember
the second?
I 100% saw that scene.
Yeah, so did I. And so apparently the director and James Gunn don't believe that scene's in the theatrical version of the actual movie. And I'm wondering, Tom, does no one pay any attention to Shazam even at Warner Brothers? It's like the people who sent the movie out, were they just like, oh, like whatever?
Well, I mean, historically, you and I have had this conversation before. Warner Brothers has been known as one of the most disorganized companies in the world, and that was one of the reasons David Zaslav was trying to bring some order of semblance to it. As far as why neither one of these two would know what's out in their cut, I have no clue. I have not seen the new movie before. I have not seen the new movie yet. I've seen the first one before, but it's been years. And as far as James Gunn go, weren't they both at the premiere?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I don't know. Maybe they just didn't pay attention. I don't understand why they're arguing about this.
I don't think that scene was in the premiere.
Maybe not. I don't know. I really wish I knew.
They're both saying it wasn't in the movie.
But you guys are claiming you saw it. I can't, like I said, I can't even add a third opinion because I haven't. What about you guys in the chat? Have you guys seen it? Is that scene in the movie? Because, frankly, I mean, you and I both know that when it comes to certain films, unless you're like a Martin Scorsese or a Quentin Tarantino, once you're done shooting, it usually kind of leaves your hands. Yeah, you get to come in and give some of your input on edits and other things, but then usually the studio and other people take over at that point, and it's a marketing machine, and you have very little control over any of that stuff. But I can't believe that the director wouldn't even be aware of what's in his movie. You would think he'd seen it at least a half a dozen times before it came out.
Yeah, and they're saying that all the people who have seen it didn't see what they saw. I didn't even know that this was a thing until this morning. I was like, I totally remember that scene.
About it.
Are you going to believe the director or your lying eyes?
I know. Now I'm put in a place to defend Grace Randolph.
I want to know what Grace has to say. Does Grace say the scenes in the movie?
Well, and that's why I wasn't so quick to jump on Grace, because James has been caught in a few lies, or at least fibs, I would say. But again, like Matt had pointed out, he's got to say certain things. He's got to toe the company line. That I can understand. I mean, of course, he's going to go out there and say, like
when it comes to reporting on James Gunn, though, like Grace is like 0.
Oh, she's clearly biased. Clearly biased. I mean, it's about like me, you know, when I get on Snyder stuff, because but I don't hide my bias. I say it flat out. I fucking hate him. Or I don't hate him personally, but I hate his DC universe.
Yeah. Vader, do you think all the talk about why Shazam 2 is failing is correct? About like people just not caring because it's they're rebooting everything, so it doesn't matter?
I do think that's part of it, because that's one of the reasons I haven't had any interest in this movie. I didn't go watch this movie because number one, I'm just not a fan of the character, and number two, because they're rebooting everything, and this doesn't matter. This is just dust in the wind, man. It doesn't matter to me at all. It's Zachary, whatever is his name. What's his name? Levi? Zachary Levi. It's his last dance in the costume, and it wasn't that well choreographed of a dance as far as I'm concerned. So, no, I'm not interested. And it's simply because that none of it matters, because they're rebooting this thing in a couple of years.
Yeah, and it's crazy, Brian, because we had the return of Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman in Shazam 2, and then we had 2 post-credit scenes that very blatantly set up like the Justice Society of America and a potential third Shazam movie. And they kept those things in there despite the fact that, obviously everything's getting rebooted, and so it doesn't matter.
Well, I'm still waiting for Masters of the Universe 2. I mean, since that credit scenes mean definitely getting another movie.
They went out of their way to expand that Wonder Woman scene. So if I had to guess, unlike Grace Randolph, this is a guess. I would say that because the 3 characters that are really up in the air right now are Wonder Woman, Superman, and Batman, right? According to, when we see the Flash, we'll be able to see at least. No, we know for a fact Superman's being done, but the other 2 characters up in the air are Batman and Wonder Woman. When we see the Flash, we'll be able to see whether or not what happens with Batman. If they stick with the original ending and Batfleck is the one lost in time, or if it's Michael Keaton's Batman. But we know now that because they expanded this, the odds of Wonder Woman being rebooted are probably slim, because they had the chance to remove this with enough time to make changes, but instead they extended that scene and then promoted it. So I do think that Wonder Woman is probably safe, and I think that it's really up to Batman now. And I don't think Ben Affleck wants to play the character anymore. So more than likely, he'll be lost to time, and it'll be there'll be some reasoning as to why it's a different Batman. But from what I read on the leaks, I do believe, spoiler alert, I do believe that Aquaman gets erased at some point, but then when Barry fixes it or whatever, he does confirm that Jason Momoa's Aquaman is still in that universe. So,
okay. So real quick before we move on to our Picard review, I just wanted to remind everyone to show some love to our sponsor. If you go to shop.exter.com/thepopcast, you can actually get 25% off any order that you get for the wallet. So you just type the Popcast in at checkout, and you instantly get that humongous discount. And don't forget that we're doing a giveaway for an extra wallet, the leather-bound version. I like this one because it's kind of a billfold, so you have your money clip here, but you also have some pockets for stuff that you use quite regularly, like your driver's license or your debit card. And it's also got a pocket on the back here. So they have a lot of different wallets, just depending on what you like. I know Vader's wallet's different than mine, but if you guys want to also be entered into the giveaway for the extra wallet, it's hashtag Salty Saturdays, and you'll instantly be entered to win that extra wallet. It's a $75 wallet, so it's pretty nice. And also, if you want to be entered for the hat, basically you just have to become a member of the YouTube channel. So we will be announcing the winner of that at the end of next month. And if anyone wants to support the channel by giving us super chats, we will literally stop everything, read your super chat, acknowledge you, and also give you more entry into the wallet giveaway contest. So every $10 you donate to the channel gets you an extra ticket, an extra chance to win that really nice wallet from our sponsor. Really appreciate those guys. So let's talk about Star Trek Picard Season 3, The Bounty. Now, Brian, I gave you a lot of shit leading up to the premiere of Season 3.
Yep.
And in fact, we even threatened to come to your house and beat you up. If
you literally threatened me with violence.
Yes.
I did. I did.
So I have to take back every bad thing I ever said about Picard season 3 after watching this episode. This is the episode that literally brings everything together. We get the band back together. The entire main cast of the original Star Trek Next Generation shows up in this episode in the best ways possible. I loved this episode. It felt really good to actually enjoy Star Trek again. A lot of setup has been paid off by this point. We got an explanation as to Jack Crusher's weird visions and stuff like that, which I'm going to get into in a little bit. But before we get to our talk about the show, I want to go with Tom and Kyle for just a little bit, because these two, despite everyone raving about this stuff, have steadfastly refused, just not had any interest in it. So I want to start with Crimson Rogue. Kyle, what's your history with Star Trek Picard, and why have you decided to abstain from season 3?
Well, before I get into Picard, you got to understand, when I was a kid, I used to watch The Next Generation all the time with my father. It was a wonderful bonding experience for the both of us. Every week in front of the TV, just the two of us going, oh my God, that fight scene was great. That moment was awesome. So it was very memorable and very meaningful for me growing up. So when I heard that they were coming out with a continuation of the legacy with Picard, I was like, okay, this might actually be really good. I really, really like Patrick Stewart as an actor. A continuation could be something promising. And then I started hearing all the bad reviews and all the negative press around that, and I was like, okay, maybe I'll keep my distance on this so that I don't have my childhood ruined, as so many other franchises have attempted to do. And the more episodes that kept coming out, the worse I kept hearing things go about. It's just, I mean, I'll say maybe season 3 is really good. You guys would be able to judge that better than I can. I haven't seen a single episode of any of this. The rants from Red Letter Media was enough of a warning for me to stay away. So even if season 3 is fantastic, I don't want to have to slug through the first 2 seasons so that I'm not falling behind and trying to pick up the pieces through context clues.
I got good news for you, bro. You don't have to.
Yeah, we've actually had a number of people who said that they didn't watch the first 2 seasons and just jumped in with season 3, and they didn't miss anything. And they don't even really reference seasons 1. Like they do occasionally, but like they're so small that like if you haven't seen them, it's just like whatever. It's just, so if you want to jump in with season 3, which is the true successor to the Next Generation, I highly recommend you do it. You don't need to watch the first 2 seasons really.
I might give it a chance then.
Yeah. Tom, we met you at the Star Trek convention. You are a Star Trek fan. Why aren't you watching Star Trek Picard season 3?
Well, it's kind of complicated. I have seen like the first 3 episodes, but when I reached out to Terry, he blocked me from messaging. So I'm like, well, I'm the only YouTuber who seems like they haven't seen this damn thing yet. So fuck it. I'm not going to watch it or review it no more. I figured, considering Midnight's Edge was pretty much one of the foremost channels when it came to Star Trek Discovery and all that business and the Kelvin timeline and all that stuff, reporting back in the day, and we reviewed all up until like Strange New Worlds, and feels like we got excluded, so I'm on protest, basically. I mean, I did somewhat enjoy the first 3 episodes. I'm enjoying Picard Wrath of Khan, but at this point, I'm just like, why should I? Everybody else has seen it and I haven't. I'm not going to go from the frame of reference that nobody else is, so screw it. I'm not trying to be a dick about it. It's just, why should I? I mean, it kind of feels like it's a non-subject for me now.
All right. Well, before we get to the defense of this episode, I want to call up some super chats real quick. So we got $10 from the Astro Nerd Boy, our former top super chatter who just got dethroned this morning. Love you, Astro Nerd Boy. Love the character stuff with Geordi. Awesome seeing the proper, not 25% different Constitution class ship. Moriarty's return was good. Ditto with Data. Shaw geeking out was fun as well. Yeah, his meeting with Geordi where he was just like,
that was funny.
all like it was almost like, when you meet these actors at the Star Trek convention, you see people react like that. It was kind of funny. And we got Fluffy Panda for $5. Even though Picard Season 3 is amazing, it doesn't let Brian off the hook for all of his misdeeds and shenanigans. Broken clock and all, blind squirrel, and hi, Tom.
What are you talking about? This guy just does not like me. It's so odd.
Yeah, well, you are our genderqueer representation on the panel, so there's going to
Lat-
bound to be a
Latinx,
little bit of pushback. Yeah.
Got it.
But
Understood.
Brian, before we get to your take on this, I just want to say that there was very little to dislike about this episode. I have a few nitpicks, which I'll get into in a little bit, but overall, this episode felt joyous to me. Like, it felt like all the criticisms I might have had for like the previous episodes just kind of went away, and I was like, this is what I've been wanting for like 20 years. This is like the episode. And I feel like they've set the stage so that with the rest of the season, we're just going to be getting more and more of this. I'm very, very excited. But Matt Vader 74, I wanted to hear your take on this episode.
What do you say? I ran the gamut of emotions while I was watching this thing. I was kind of texting Brian along while I was watching this thing, and I'm like, dude, I'm a mess right now. I went from excitement to almost tears on this thing, and I haven't felt that way about a Star Trek episode. I don't know if I've ever felt that way. And
Wrath of Khan, though.
Yeah, I guess that Wrath of Khan. There's a moment in this episode, and I guess we can go spoilers, where Geordi sees Data on the Titan after they bring Data in, and just the look on his face was so emotional. I mean, Terry Metalis has done such a fantastic job about getting heartfelt, emotional performances out of all of these actors. It's been really wild to see, because they're acting their asses off right now, way more than I think they ever did before. And I've been super impressed with the performances that are coming out of the show from our old cast. It's been really good. I mean, this episode should have been called Roddenberries. That should have been the title of the show. But damn it, I loved every single one of them. I did. I loved every single one of them, and I have so many questions that I want answered about some of these Roddenberries that they threw in here. But yeah, man, it's just the show is a love letter. It's a love letter to our old Star Trek, and yeah, I get that people aren't coming on board. You're missing out if you're not watching this show, man. That's all I can really say right now. You need to like shit or get off the pot, because it's time to watch season 3 if you haven't done it yet. Because
you can always watch it afterwards, but you're gonna miss the watching it with all the other fans. That's sort of awesome,
Yeah. So Brian, rather than have you gush and give your highlights of this episode, which you've already done on the channel, I actually want to ask you some questions about it.
Sure.
Because you've seen the entire season ahead of time, so you kind of know where this is going. But I wanted to ask you, so when they showed Kirk's Enterprise at the museum, I thought that ship got destroyed in the search for Spock. Like, what was the Enterprise that blew up there?
Yeah, that's a great question. We've been debating back and forth as to which version of the Enterprise that was. But there is a moment coming up that, let's say, that is the ship, the Enterprise. Well, Enterprise, that wasn't Wrath of Khan. Enterprise didn't blow up in Wrath of Khan.
No, it blew up in Search for Spock.
Right. But let's say that is the same Enterprise. There is a moment coming up in the season that would explain that, and I gotta be really careful about what I say, but if that is the ship that crashed, then there's a reasoning behind why it would be there, like in canon, that makes complete sense. And I can't really say anything else about it because of that, because it's a spoiler.
Okay, because that was one of the things I was wondering. I was like, I thought that the original Enterprise blew up in the third movie, but I could be wrong about that.
So in the third movie, it crashed on a planet, right?
No, they actually blew it up. Kirk set the self-destruct.
Well, he
blew up in the atmosphere.
It crash landed in the atmosphere, burned up.
Yep. Yeah, but it was on a planet, though, right? It wasn't like disintegrated, right?
No, it completely
Like they're
blew
like
up.
that's the same movie. They were on the planet and they're watching the wreckage come down. Correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So there is a moment coming up that would explain why that ship would be there.
Okay. So one of the things I really loved about this episode was seeing Jack Crusher kind of hit on Crash LaForge, Sidney LaForge, and like I hadn't really picked up on any like like flirtation between them up until this episode, and it was always funny because like whenever Jack did that, Sidney was kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm digging this, and then at the end, Jordy's just like, stay away from my daughter, like the dad in him like comes out.
Get away
in that
from my
moment.
daughter.
Well,
Yeah.
dads pick up on that stuff immediately.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
don't be eyeballing my daughter.
Yeah. Hey,
And
chill
I-
out,
I
bud.
don't like you.
Put your
Yeah.
dick back in your pants.
I love that interaction. But the question I have for you, Brian, is how did Sydney's hair grow so long within the span of like a few days? Because like her hairstyle was very different the previous episode.
Yeah, we actually had that same conversation. I don't have no idea, man.
It's
Did
all
she
right.
like did she have the replicators make some hair extensions for her? Or
Yeah, it
something
must
like
have
that?
been some hair extensions. They hit like off screen. They hit like a crazy warp bubble that like accelerated time. I don't know. I don't have an answer for you. I actually had the same question.
We actually have a super chat from Astro Nerd Boy, real quick. For $5, that was Enterprise A, which we saw in Star Trek 4.
6.
It was, or 6, sorry. It was the Enterprise that blew up. Well, it was Kirk's Enterprise, right? It was the Enterprise from the TV show.
Well, no. So the Kirk used the original NC 1701 and A. So I guess.
But the AK,
Listen, Star Trek 3 was the same ship that they had in the original series. It was refitted and stuff. That was what all this stuff was going on. And then they got blown up and disintegrated in the atmosphere.
No, but
After that, when they came home from Star Trek 4, they got the new Enterprise A.
Yeah. And then Kirk got sucked out of the Enterprise B, which is how he ended up in Generations, right?
Right.
Something like
Right.
that, yeah.
I don't know. Well, I know for a fact that the Enterprise, someone was asking if the BC, if the B and C were there, and they're not. It was just the straight up NC 1701.
Okay, so we were talking about Star Trek 3 in this episode, Search for Spock, and there were a few Easter eggs in this episode of Picard, which completely blew my mind. I know that me and Vader had a geeking out moment over them.
Mm-hmm.
So first of all, when they break into the Section 31 vault, basically we get to see some of the stuff that Section 31 is housing there. And the first of which is the second generation version of the Genesis missile.
Yeah.
I think that was.
Torpedo.
And that was the thing. Yeah, that was the thing that basically.
Okay, Section 31 is officially the worst kept secret in Star Trek universe now.
Well,
Yeah.
it's the Daystrom Institute, not the Section 31 museum. It's the Daystrom Institute.
They said
Yeah,
that Section 20. They said Section 31 just stored some crap there.
Yeah. So basically, they have the Genesis missile, which is what brought Spock back to life, and repopulated dead planets and stuff like that. So
Right,
they
well,
actually
it made a planet.
Yeah. So they actually have a version of that stored in the Daystrom vault there. But
Mark
in
II.
addition to that, right after that, we get to see a vault that has Captain Kirk's bones in it.
Yeah, his
So-
body. Yeah, that's
So you
wild.
have the resurrection device and you have Kirk's body in the same
know.
thing.
I know.
So Brian, I gotta ask you, what is Terry planning with these two things?
Yeah, you guys don't get it. I spoke to Terry and about Kirk's body, and he was like, "It's a travesty that Kirk died on some bum F planet under a bridge somewhere.
Mhm.
And if I have the opportunity, I'm gonna fix that." That's all he said to me, dude.
So they'll bring back Shatner just to give him a proper death. Is that how it
Just
goes?
imagine that. Like, he just wants to fix. If he has the opportunity, he's gonna fix that ridiculous nut. Because I mean, this is stupid. He should. The fact that he died under a bridge, like he just went out like a punk. Like
You're
the
leaving
man,
out
the myth,
one
the
very
legend.
important part, though. His final words were a big "fuck you."
Yeah, it's true.
Do you not remember what his final words were?
I remember him holding on for dear life, and for
His
some reason-
last words were, "Oh my."
Oh my. Oh God. Yeah. So I did. That's funny because I brought the same thing. I'm like, what's that about? Terry goes, listen, I can't say anything, but if I have the chance, I'm gonna fix this problem.
I can't believe I'm the only Trek fan here who knows what Shatner's last words were in Star Trek. Jesus.
I think I blocked it out, bro.
I think it's just Terry throwing an Easter egg in there to make all of us nerds out there lose our collaborative minds.
No,
because
for sure,
that one thing has sparked so much nonsensical banter.
Well, consider this,
on
though, bro.
The interweb. It's just insane. I mean, it doesn't matter. It doesn't even. It's crazy.
No, yeah, it's just a Roddenberry. But out of all the things you can combine on that stage, there's so many crazy, cool artifacts that we could have looked at as Easter eggs. You just happen to combine those two things.
Oh yeah,
that's
for sure.
Listen. I don't know if that's not that would be like a nice little open possible setup for something if he ever wanted to play with it. At the very least, it's there.
Yep, and that's all it is. It's just a little seed to spark conversation for us to be nerds about. My favorite thing in Daystrom was the Tribble.
Yeah, the attack.
That was my favorite thing, and it was just a great Worf Riker moment. It was just a classic Worf. I'm not a merry man, or it's a Gorch. Worf got his little not Worf moment because the look on his face when that Tribble was up against the window was classic. He was like, "Oh shit!" He was scared. He was like, "I was like, you don't mess with Tribbles if you're a Klingon." So that was pretty funny.
I did love how Worf is like, I prefer non-violent means nowadays, and Riker's just like, we're all doomed.
We're all gonna die.
That's funny. Yeah. Real quick, we got a super chat from Fluffy Panda for $5. We call that up, Vader. They even had Brian's skeleton stored there.
Oh,
very
Jesus
interesting. Fluffy Panda is the ultimate Brian troll.
Nice.
So Brian, there was one more thing. Like when Worf was looking at the attack Tribble, there was like a little holographic thing behind him that looked like a pod of some sort. Me and Vader were trying to figure out what that might have been a reference to. Do you know what that was?
That was a Borg. It's called I can't pronounce the name. Verkilium something. Anyways, what it is, it's a part of the Borg ship that connects all the minds together.
Okay.
Interesting.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. So there was another big revelation at the end of this episode that sparked a theory in my head, and I'm going to kind of go through this. So it turns out that the big weapon that the changelings stole from the Daystrom Institute here, it wasn't that weird portal device. It was the original Picard's body. And this is what Data reveals to the crew of the Titan at the end of the episode. That basically somehow Section 31 was storing Picard's human body at that facility, and that's what was taken. And it's interesting because earlier in this episode, they mentioned about how Starfleet had unleashed a virus amongst the changelings during the Dominion War that infected the link, and basically it was kind of like they were killing them off by attrition, and eventually they gave them the antidote after the war was over. But my guess is that the reason that they're going after Jack so hard, and the reason that they stole Picard's body, is this thing that Picard suffered from, which is Irumodic syndrome.
Aromatic
syndrome, which is a brain disease that is incurable, and it causes visions and stuff like that. And it's revealed in this episode that Jack contracted that disease, I guess, genetically from his dad, Picard. And so my guess, this is my theory. I haven't seen past episode 6, so I don't know if this is correct or not. This is just my writer brain working. It's that these changeling offshoots that are trying to destroy Starfleet, it's not going to be like a big bomb that destroys their ships or whatever. I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to weaponize Irumodic syndrome to release, just like they had their virus released amongst the changelings in the link. They want to release this virus amongst the human population, and because it's incurable, it's going to basically wipe out everyone in Starfleet, and that's how they get their revenge, which is what Vadic said at the beginning of this episode, is like they want revenge. So that's my theory, is that they need Jack in order to somehow weaponize this disease so they can release it during Fleet Week when everyone's there. Vader, what do you think of that theory? Do you think that sounds about right?
It's a theory. I think that's could be something going down that route. Yeah. I don't know. I don't theorize a whole lot of like that kind of stuff in my head. I just try to enjoy the show for what it is. But yeah, I can see something like that going on. You know,
Yeah.
and they infected us, and we're gonna infect them.
Yeah.
But they don't give us
Tat.
when after we infect them with it. So yeah, I don't know.
So, Brian, are we going to learn more about who these changeling offshoots are in the coming episodes? Like, do we ever get like a definitive answer on what their plot is and like why they're doing what they're doing?
Yeah, you definitely do. Yeah, I don't know. How do you want me to answer that, dude?
I know, right?
I'm not going to ask you to comment on my theory.
I mean,
I'm
yeah.
just saying, like,
Yeah, the story is definitely told as to what the purpose of the body is and why they're looking for Jack and who they are and who everyone is. And Jesus. Yeah, it's all told. It's told and it's satisfying. I gotta tell you though, I think next episode, if I recall, is very exposition heavy. Like it explains a lot of things, and like you might get answers, but I'm not sure if you're going to be as entertained as this episode. If that makes sense. I mean, maybe you will. I'm not sure.
It was fun getting to see all the TNG crew come together,
Right?
Especially Geordi. So I want to talk real quick, since we're on the subject of Star Trek, about this thing that came out literally like 2 days ago, I think, or yesterday, which is the rumors of a Star Trek Legacy spinoff. So LeVar Burton was on The View with Whoopi Goldberg, Matt Bader's favorite talk show host, and he kind of let it slip that there's definitely room for new Star Trek with the next gen cast.
Yeah, baby.
And immediately on Twitter, hashtag Star Trek Legacy started going absolutely crazy. In fact, we got a little article here about it. So essentially, Terry Matalas came out and said, yeah, like, we have an idea for something called Star Trek Legacy, which would bridge the gap between the 24th and the 25th centuries, bring old and new crews together. So it wouldn't be a fourth season of Picard. It'd be something totally new, which I'm hoping Beyond Hope would be like a Captain Shaw Titan show, but with like, maybe some next gen cast members involved and somehow. But we got from Trek Movie right here, we got the video where LeVar Burton and his daughter appeared on The View with Whoopi Goldberg and all this stuff. And here's Terry Matalas. In case you're wondering, Star Trek Legacy is what I'd call a spin-off show from Star Trek Picard, a 25th century show that explores the last generation and the next. And this blew the minds of pretty much every Star Trek fan on Twitter. Tom Connors, what's your take on this? Would you tune in for a Star Trek Legacy spinoff?
Well, I don't know if I tune in necessarily. I do have a little bit of news on this, though.
Okay.
I've been trying to get Andre's side of it because I have a couple of people who have brought me some info. I don't know how to disseminate it yet, though. But the best from my side of it that I can tell is that there may be something to this. Because there was a point where, it was kind of like, this is it, this is done. Terry was a one and done kind of deal for him, and he was gone. And Brian may know more from talking to him. I don't know. But from what we're hearing now, I don't know how Kurtzman's trying to reinsert himself back into this mess again.
Yeah.
But supposedly there's going to be some big announcement. And yes, there has been some talks of extending. They have noticed the success, at least amongst the fans. It hasn't necessarily gotten the numbers they're hoping for viewer-wise, but they are noticing the goodwill from the fans on this, I will say. So this is something that is being considered, although because prior to all the Picard stuff, the most we kept hearing was that the 60th anniversary is coming. They're going to lay low for about a year or so while they build up momentum to this big, huge celebration deal, and then Kurtzman's supposed to be going bye-bye. But now I'm starting to hear that he may be getting an extension, but it's only because he's going to be playing nice with other people. I don't know much more than that. I was hoping to get Andre's side of the story before then. But I would say there is some possibility to this having a future, at least for now anyway. I don't know what is all going to happen. Supposedly Kurtzman's supposed to be announcing some other new series. I don't think it's going to be Section 31, even though that's what he's been wanting. But I mean, I could see the fans getting back on board, and I would love to see the TNG crew in some new adventures. Oh yeah.
So Kyle, you talked about how the Next Generation was your bag growing up. It was mine too. If we have a true successor to the Next Generation, the next generation, Star Trek Legacy, would you be tuning in to watch that?
Possibly. Like, I'd be open to the idea. It just comes down to, I already have so many streaming services. I don't know what if I want to add one more. Really, I'm kind of getting burned out on so many properties being brought back from several decades past, whether they be good or not, and just having new companies milk them for all they're worth. I kind of want something new. So that's just me speaking for myself. Legacy could be a great idea. I don't know. I don't know the writers they have involved, but that's pretty much all I've got on that.
So I wanted to ask you about real quick. Have you read any of the like Star Trek novels, like the novelizations or standalone novels in the expanded universe?
Not the expanded universe of Star Trek. At least I'm very, very slowly making my way through Star Wars at the moment. I just finished Heir of the Empire by Timothy Zahn, and I can totally get why people fell in love with Thrawn. Oh my God. But haven't touched Star Trek yet.
So I know that there's a book that supposedly did what Terry wants to do, which is it took Picard and Kirk and kind of rejiggered their last meeting with like Kirk's death and stuff like that. So I was just wondering if you've read that or not. Maybe you should do a series on your YouTube channel about reading some Star Trek books.
I have been thinking about spinoffs to do, so maybe.
All right, Brian.
Yes.
Do you know anything about this spinoff Star Trek Legacy?
I know that's what Terry wanted to call it. And that wasn't a recent thing. I remember him months ago saying the same thing, and we just couldn't say anything about it. But if he gets a shot to do it, that's what he wanted to call it, Star Trek Legacy. I don't know if... I haven't heard anything recently. But last time we talked, Terry was moving on. But things can change. I don't know if that...
Right.
I don't know how much I can even say, but from what last time we spoke about it to him, he was going to another studio. He still was in contract with CBS, but he was like starting another project, and there was no word on him sticking around. In fact, they were like going in another direction, but that doesn't mean that's what it is now. So
let me ask you this: do you think that LeVar Burton, going on one of the most highly rated daytime talk shows in the country, and dropping this was a pressure tactic to try to, because I've noticed a lot of the Star Trek actors have been retweeting the Terry Trek petition and stuff like that. Do you think that this is a strategy by those in support of Terry to try to force Paramount's hand into bringing him back for more Trek?
That's a very interesting thought, because I do know for a fact that the entire crew has publicly sang Terry's praises, and Jerry, and I could be saying it wrong right now, but last time I checked, Jerry was like, I don't want to do anything without Terry. And then not only did she say that, but then she also tweeted out the petition and a couple other retweets. And the thing is, like, one of the projects they were working on supposedly involved her. So, like, if she's holding out, she's probably a big player to hold out for. So the entire crew loves Terry. Like, they've all sang his praises multiple times. In fact, we've interviewed 4 of the crewmates, the crew members now, right? And 2 of the actors. We haven't aired it yet, but we will before the end of the season. Well, we've interviewed them, and in the interviews, they all say the same thing. Like, Terry is a god king, and we want to keep working with this dude. So they all say it. Like, why would they say it to us privately? Well, it's not, the camera's not even running, and they're like, "Oh, Terry's amazing. He's brought the best out in us. Like, if I have the opportunity to work with Terry, I'll work with Terry for as long as he had." Yeah, they literally said things like, "Terry has my sword." You know, I think Todd Stashwick was like, "If Terry sounds the horn of Gondor, I'm there, bro."
That's what he said.
Yeah, and the writers we've talked to all say the same thing. Like, Terry makes the call, and we're dropping everything we're doing, and we're going with Terry. So that kind of loyalty is sort of unique, or really unique. And I believe if 3 or 4 of the crew members that are supposed to be on this new show or these new shows are are waiting for Terry, and it's getting the response it's getting, I mean, I think things can change. Terry hasn't told me anything.
But a lot of that does support what I've heard, though. If you think about it,
right.
So there may have been some talks. There's been some flurry over the last week here. I know that because they are getting ready to plan for the 60th anniversary. But I also been hearing Kurtzman's been trying to. I heard some crazy deal. I can't even believe this. Supposedly about getting his contract up to 2030, but I don't believe that. So that's from somebody. And this is going back to the Grace Randolph stuff earlier. I have to go through and sift what we get, and then Andre and I go back and forth about what we do have, go through other sources and check it out, see what they've heard. And it's like, I got to remember certain people are biased on certain things and everything like that. So that's the thing. Yeah.
And it's the same thing. So I'll get all kinds of random emails and tweets and Instagram posts. But it's impossible to know if we're just being trolled or not. And then when we talk to the crew, I know for a fact that some of the people we talk to that are on the crew can't say anything. And so one indicator, if I ask a pointed question like, "Hey, what's this thing about this, Starfleet Academy show?" If they just like completely ghost me and never answer the question, but then talk to me about something else later on, that usually is like an indicator that they're not allowed to talk about it. Which
and
means
that's kind of what I've been hearing might be the announcement. Funnily enough, is something like that. Because as far as I've heard, Section 31 is like in limbo. Like
that's in like eternal limbo. Yeah.
I don't think we're going to get a Section 31 show. I don't think
Michelle Yeoh won that Oscar. It was pretty much out the window.
I don't think people even want a Section 31 show. What people want is a Star Trek legacy show. We want a Star Trek show on the Titan featuring these characters that we're being introduced to now, and we want it to go along with the Strange New World show. These guys aren't stupid. These producers, Terry Kurtzman might be, whatever he is, but he's not dumb. We got a Strange New World show. We got a Pike show because the audience resonated with these characters, and we were loud about it. We want this show. This is what we want to watch. We don't want to watch your stupid Discovery show set 900 years in the future, because we had to do that because you shit on everything that was a Star Trek. What we want is a Titan show with Shaw and Seven and Sydney and these other new characters that Terry is bridging the gap with. And if we get, some a Rikers thing here and there, if we get, Geordi to come on the show once in a while, that's great. But that's what we want. We want this legacy show, and it needs to be on the Titan with new adventures moving along in the 25th century. And I think that's what we're going to get when it's all said and done. I think that's where we're going. And if it's not where we're going, then they're foolish. You know what I mean? So that's just how I see it. I don't see how they could go in any other direction. Nobody wants Title 31 show. Who cares? Nobody gives a shit about that stuff. They can explore Title 31 stories within the new show. All of those little things that he dropped in this episode could all be their own little story arcs in whatever new show comes out. But give us this legacy show. Give us these characters that have relations to our old characters. They could even bring in Miles O'Brien's and Keiko's daughter. Maybe what is she doing? Is she working in Starfleet? Is she who knows? It doesn't matter, but it could be a lot of fun. That's what I want, and I think that's what everybody else wants too.
Yeah, there's one question I have. Where's Alexander?
Yeah.
I wanted to ask Brian and Tom real quick. I think the news that's been coming out at Paramount is that they're ready to do a couple of miniseries, Star Trek miniseries, but they haven't really kind of zeroed in on like a recurring series yet, especially with Discovery winding down. Have you guys heard anything about like a miniseries slate?
A little bit, but again, dissemination. I think this is Kurtzman trying to reestablish his dominance in this thing, because I think going forward, and this is just my speculation, just from what I'm hearing, I think Paramount is like, we need to get this Terry guy back to work on something, and Kurtzman's fine with that as long as he can keep going with his shit, because their contract is going to be up just before the 60th anniversary, so all that stuff seems to line up. But I don't know, because he's been talking miniseries for a while. We kept hearing that after Netflix was able to pull out of the whole Discovery deal, that they were like, well, we might just do a season 3 or a season 4 and then wrap it up with a movie. And then the movie became season 4 and 5 or whatever. And then it was like, well, we might still have a movie one. Then they're going back for reshoots. It's like they don't even know what they're doing half the time, it sounds like. And like Brian said, most of the cast and crew don't know anything until it starts to happen. And even when they do, they can't really say too much. But right now, I've heard a bunch of flurries. Everything seems like it's in flux. It feels like, to me, Kurtzman is desperately trying to hang on to this franchise because he's really got nothing else right now. But I guess it all depends on how much his goodwill is with Paramount still after the Clarice snafu. And all the popularity. It's funny you just said that, because that means you must have heard something too. But like, yeah, because like Terry's stock is going up. I'll say that much. Like I can't say I've heard anything solid, but like Brian said, he's already tied to other things, but they are taking notice. I know that.
All right, real quick before we move on, we got a super chat from JT Gunn. Says, cannot stay, but here's a 2-spot, LOL. Thank you for the $2, JT. Really appreciate it. And, of course, Whiskey Jack for £2. Down for Legacy, but please, no more decrepit cast.
Well, and I think a lot of people would just be happy if they just go forward, right? Like, that's the thing. From day one, when we heard about Discovery, it's like, why are you going back to the past again? Why can't we have any Star Trek post-Nemesis? What is the problem with it? And then we got some Star Trek post-Nemesis, and we've seen why we shouldn't ask for such things. But, you know, if really at this point is like, you've got something, the momentum is there, go with it. Paramount, with Brian Robbins and the team they've got running it now, I think they want what's best for the company, which in turn is what's best for the fans. That's really the thing we can hope for.
Yeah. All right. Before we've talked about Star Trek, the rest of the show is going to be...
Hold up. We got one more super chat, the Star Trek theme here. So let's get that out of the way. Astro Nerd Boy, $5. Thank you. Kurtzman having any sort of creative control over some new Star Trek would immediately kill it for me. He has creative control over this show, right? But he let Terry do his thing. Am I wrong?
No.
Am I wrong there?
No,
So,
you're not wrong.
I mean, I don't care if Kurtzman's there in the back, as long as he lets these creators, create
that's all that matters.
and tell their stories. I don't give a shit if he's there or not. As long
It just
as he
so happened that
stays out of the back.
During season 2 and 3 of Picard, Kurtzman was wrapped up in his Man Who Fell to Earth and Clarice crap, right? So by the time, I'm assuming Terry started working on season 3, because he was there during season 2, but he didn't.
Right.
Akiva Goldsman had creative control over season 2.
Right.
And then Akiva moved over to Strange New Worlds, which was his baby. And Robert Meyer Burnett and I reported on this like almost 2 years ago, where we were talking about Kurtzman was kind of being squeezed out of the mix. And so he went off to do these other things. And then comes Terry and taking over season 3. And he was basically given free reins. The only things he had to adhere to, from my knowledge, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Brian, is he had to at least keep, I think, Raffi, because she was contractually obligated for a 3rd season.
That's true.
So he had to keep her in there. And basically, other than that, he was given free rein to do just about anything he wants, as long as he was leaping off from the point where they were. Like, he couldn't, like, just start over, right? Like, so he was stuck having to deal with whatever came before. But it sounds like, to me, from the episodes I've seen and from you guys are talking, he tried to do his best to fix the problems.
He's doing a brilliant job trying to fix these problems that they gave us.
And I don't think he could have got away with doing that without Kurtzman looking over his shoulders, what I'm trying to say. But sorry.
Tom is pretty much right. Yeah. So Rafi was built grandfathered in, no matter what.
Yeah.
Everything that wasn't grandfathered in, as far as like contractually, was left in the wayside. It was yeeted out the back. And as far as the story goes, there were story points that, and you're gonna know by the end of the season, like there's gonna be questions you have regarding season 2 at the end of the season that really don't have a good answer because he just didn't want to include certain things because it didn't fit with his vision. But there were a couple of story points, like the character, like Picard being synthetic. Those things have to be addressed. He inherited that. Certain things he just inherited that he had to deal with. But as far as actors and writers and going all that, is whatever was grandfathered in is what he had to keep. Everything else got removed.
All right, guys. So we've talked about Star Trek long enough. Let's move into Star Wars. But before we do, I just want to remind everyone that if you want to be entered to the giveaway for the extra wallet, just type in hashtag Salty Saturday in the YouTube chat, and you'll be automatically entered to be pulled out of a random hat at the end of this episode so that you can actually win that wallet.
Just
And
qualify around.
yeah, and also remember, anyone who gives us a super chat, so you can see the super chat scrolling at the bottom of the screen here, in every $10 increment, you guys get entered into that regardless. So, like, basically you're buying a raffle ticket essentially to be entered into the giveaway for this wallet. So everyone who's down there, you're going to be in there. We really appreciate your support. But let's talk a little bit about The Mandalorian, Episode 4, The Foundling. Vader, how stupid was this episode?
Dude, I don't know what they're doing over there. It's terrible. It's just such a weird live action cartoon. I'm having more fun watching The Bad Batch right now. And I'm not exaggerating. The Bad Batch is a better show than The Mandalorian is right now. I watched through this thing and I see a show that should be so much better. But what I see is just weird things, and I don't understand why they're doing it. I see a colony of Mandalorian cultists who, they're training, but yet they're training on a beach where a giant crocodile just like killed a couple of them
Right.
in the last episode. It's like, oh, that's a real safe place to train your kids and do your thing. And they don't even have a training ground. They're just out there in the sand. Whoa, ho, who, he, it's the silliest thing I've ever seen. And they're just out there exposed out there where a giant dragon bird thing can fly down and snatch one up off the ground and it flies off. And then they're all like, well, we're going to chase it down and go rescue the kid. But yet they all run out of fuel with their jetpacks before the bird lands because clearly they all don't know how to, judge how much fuel they have in their jetpacks. And then they have to walk back. God knows how many miles that was, but it took them like 5 minutes. There's just weird stuff in this show. Weird inconsistencies that don't make any sense. And it just makes me want to chalk it up to stupid. It completely takes me out of this show. When I think of live action Star Wars, I understand it's a fantasy, but when you're in live action, it needs to make sense. I think of stuff like Rogue One, when they're down there with Saw Gerrera's crew, stuff like that. That looks good. It makes sense to me how these people interact. But this is just a live action cartoon, and they're treating it like that, and I don't like it. If I want to watch a cartoon, I'll watch a cartoon, and I do, and I'll watch The Bad Batch, and it's better. This whole thing where they rescue the kid 24 hours later, but he's not there because he's still inside the creature's throat or stomach, and he barfs it up, but yet he's still there. He's all good. Oh, I'm okay, Dad. I just got barfed up by this bird creature that I've been digesting in his stomach for the last 24 hours. it's the dumbest thing. It makes no sense to me at all whatsoever. So
Yeah,
I don't know.
that was my biggest complaint about this episode is that you have a situation where one of the younglings, one of the foundlings, I guess you should call him, from the Mandalorian cult gets swiped up by a winged raptor creature.
Yeah.
And they chase after it because he's actually the son of one of the top Mandalorians in the cult who has like zero emotion for the fact that his kid just got kidnapped. But basically, it takes them 2 days to find the raptor's nest and climb to the top so as not to alert the raptor, even though like the raptor's not there. And then when they get to the top, 2 days later, the raptor shows up with the kid still in its mouth, and it's getting ready to regurgitate it to the baby raptors. And you're like, wouldn't it have flown back right away to feed its babies? Like why was this kid in that raptor's mouth for like a whole 2 days?
So it was crazy because it took the kid and it flew to its nest. And this thing is so far away that the Mandos can't use their jetpacks without them running out of fuel. So Bo-Katan follows it and tracks it in her spaceship. So then she flies back and gets her crew. They get round up and they go, we're going to go rescue the kid because I know where the nest is. It's on top of this giant spire. But then we're going to land the ship miles away from the spire where the nest is, and they're going to hike in, and then they're going to camp out overnight at the base of the spire while the kid, who we don't know is still being regurgitated in this thing's stomach, is just hanging out in this nest up there. I mean, it made no sense. There was no sense of urgency to rescue this kid. We're just going to make camp, have a fire, eat dinner, have our scene where we have to go into separate ways to take our helmets off to eat food. It was the dumbest thing I've ever. It's one of the dumbest things I've ever seen. It made no sense at all.
We all know, thanks to Boba Fett, that you can't digest Mandalorian, so that might have been in canon. Brian, I wanted to ask you. So, like, we got a big flashback from Baby Grogu's point of view in this episode. And we have the triumphant return of Ahmed Best, not as Jar Jar,
I forgot
but as a new Jedi character. And when he showed up, I actually felt pretty good because I feel like Ahmed Best has gotten kind of like the short end of the shaft when it comes to fandom stuff. So it was nice to get to see like him being able to embody a character just as himself and get like a better character to kind of like show off his talents with, because like he had a really hard time of it. But I wanted to hear your take on this episode and what you thought of that flashback.
I didn't finish the episode. I started watching it. It was real late. I was in the middle of a render, and I was actually editing an interview with Terry, and while it was rendering, I started watching The Mandalorian, and I fell asleep. Next thing you know, it's like 10 o'clock in the morning. So I didn't finish it. I'm sorry.
He didn't miss anything.
Yeah, it was. I think the reason it didn't hold my attention was not just because I was tired. Because no matter how tired I am, if something is good, I'm good to go. It's just sort of boring, and there's a lot of things that, and I gotta finish it. But there's a lot of things that sort of frustrate you the entire time. But it's also boring. Like I said last week, it's like it feels so boring. The pacing feels boring. Everything feels sort of slow. It's very hard to explain. It just feels sort of slow. Like everyone is moving at a pace that doesn't really determine urgency. And it's funny because you were saying like they weren't in a hurry to save the kid or whatever. Like that's how I feel like the whole time so far. Like no one's really in a hurry.
Mm-mm.
Vader's eyes are messing with my brain right now. Yeah, so I gotta finish it, but like that's my overall take right now. Is like everyone feels like they're sort of just moving at a pace that it doesn't say urgency, doesn't say exciting.
Well, it's not just the pace; just the stories that they're telling us don't make sense. In I don't care if it's in the Star Wars; it doesn't make sense that they wouldn't have done everything they could to rescue that kid within 48 hours of him being taken. It would have been immediate. It's insane to me. That's and the whole true. the Ahmed Best thing. I mean, it's like, what was that all about? It's like, oh, poor Ahmed. He played a terrible character, so let's throw him a bone and let him rescue Grogu. I get it. That's fine. But,
And I'm starting to hate that stupid Grogu character.
Yeah, and, and there was that scene. Why are they making Grogu a Mandalorian? He's a baby Yoda creature. He's not a you know, it's like, oh, are we gonna have a baby Yoda? We're gonna have a teenage Yoda with armor and shoulder pads and stuff one of these days, with wrist missiles and a helmet. It's
In about 500 years, man.
Yeah, get out of here. It's the dumbest thing I've ever seen.
Well, no, the first king of the Mandalorians bridged the gap between the Jedi and the Mandalore. And that's what Grogu is going to become. He's going to become the king of Mandalore. And he's going to bridge the gap between the Jedi and the Mandalorians.
Real quick, about 200-300 years, because that's my issue with the show too. At this point, I haven't watched it, but I think I've said it here before. They needed to make the baby talk at some point, or let us know that he's 50 years old, right? Like, he may look like a baby, but he's 50 years old. I mean, it just makes no sense.
They're starting to have him make noises. Real quick, we got a super
though.
chat.
I mean, like, he's been talking for years, but yeah.
Yeah. Real quick, we got a super chat from Dennis Wright for $4.99. Will this wallet make my butt look good? Actually, this wallet's thin enough to keep it in your front pocket, so you don't
it's a
have
front
to have
pocket.
that disgusting bulge on your butt anymore. And also Whiskey Jack for £2. Just shut up and buy the toys, people.
See, and that's the other thing. That's what this show is doing, is trying to sell toys. And it's just, and that's a lot of all I see. You know, we're gonna get, you know, Ahmed Best rescues Baby Groda set. We're gonna get the 3 little baby raptor with Yoda set. We're gonna get 1,500 new Mandalorian helmets on Funko Pop bodies, you know, from every one of those stupid guys that are out there on the beach. We're gonna get a Crocagator thing. It's enough. I've had it.
Enough.
Enough. It's ridiculous.
So I want to throw this to Kyle. So Kyle, you're also refusing to watch The Mandalorian season 3, and you're not alone. A lot of people, ever since the end of season 2 of The Mandalorian, have been really disappointed with the Star Wars TV offerings. We had the terrible Obi-Wan show. We had the Book of Boba Fett, which was a disaster. And now we've got season 3, and people are just finding it aimless and kind of pointless and dumb. Why have you checked out on Star Wars, especially the TV shows?
Well, just like correction, I wouldn't say that I've refused to watch it so much as I don't care. I have seen the first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian. I thought they were fine, and that's about it. There certainly are moments that I enjoyed. There are bits that I wouldn't mind seeing again. And every once in a while, the show would have something interesting or funny to offer. But it was a very episodic series that felt like it was trying to tell an ongoing narrative. And it's like every episode, the plot advances like another 5%, and then another 2%, and then another 3%. You get all these little bite-sized pieces out of a very simplistic story overall. Season 1, get Baby Yoda from point A to point B, and it takes him forever. Season 2, find Luke, or whatever the point of that season was. You've got these really simple plot lines that take forever to stretch out, and you can enjoy the some episodes in the moment, but after a while, you start to notice how gimmicky everything is. Baby Yoda exists not as a character, but as a MacGuffin, and as has been suggested previously, just an item to sell toys. He's not really there to grow or advance anything. He's there to look cute and for some reason eat salamander eggs right in front of the mother. What was up with that episode?
That's so weird.
Yeah, but the other issue I've got, and this kind of ties into why I'm not bothering with the other shows, on top of I don't feel like getting a Disney Plus account to watch any of this stuff, is there's a degree of interconnectivity that kind of makes things distracting. Boba Fett, for example, had that duel with Blue Cowboy Man.
Cad Bane.
Thank you. And it, from my understanding, it was treated like it was a really big deal, but I had no history for it, and apparently had to watch some other show in order to understand it, or be invested in Star Wars a lot deeper than I am. And to a point, I like that interconnectivity where things can branch off of each other and tell a more advanced, interconnected story. But if you've got to go and you've got to watch all these other things in order to have more investment in the show or the characters, that eventually becomes too much work. So it's not that I'm against a lot of what they're doing with Mandalorian. From what I've seen, of course, I have no context for season 3. It's just, I've got better stuff to do.
Let me ask you. So, like, have you ever read any of the Lone Wolf and Cub mangas?
No, I have not.
So, The Mandalorian's basically a ripoff of this very old and famous comic book called Lone Wolf and Cub, and it's starting to become like a trope almost, because we keep seeing like we just watched Adam Driver's movie 65, which is essentially another Lone Wolf and Cub movie. And it's always like, you know, the old battle-hardened warrior teams up with like a defenseless child, and the child learns how to be, you know, a warrior by watching like this older person protect him and stuff like that. So I just thought it was interesting. But you also said you recently read the Thrawn trilogy, which is probably some of the best Star Wars expanded universe books ever written by Timothy Zahn. And I wanted to get your take on this before we move to Tom. Why do you think Lucasfilm decided not to translate those books into movies and go with like the sequel trilogy that they did?
I don't have anything concrete to really point to. Tom would be better equipped to answer that than I would. If I were to throw a guess out, it's that they had an idea for marketability, certain toy lines they probably wanted to sell, certain storylines that would branch into other storylines, that would branch into other series, that would branch into other series, that would allow them to just keep making and selling and crapping stuff out. And that they probably thought they couldn't do that as effectively with the extended universe as it was.
Yeah, that's a shame. There were a lot of good stories in the expanded universe. Now, Tom, I know you didn't watch The Mandalorian. You don't really care. So I want to ask you something that's a little bit off topic here, which is about Victoria Alonso. Now, she was like a big producer over in the Marvel Studios area. She recently got let go or fired or quit. We don't quite know what.
She's been
It's
fired.
it's come out today that she's going to go scorched earth on Disney and Marvel. She's going to be suing them and basically telling her side of the story in the press and stuff like that. Now, you guys have been covering this since the story broke a couple of days ago. Can you give us a general overview of who Victoria Alonso is, like what her contribution to Marvel was, why she got fired, and what the current controversy is right now?
The shortest version I can give you guys is Victoria Alonso is one of the original members of Marvel Studios. Like way back, she's been a part of this since 2006, back with Kevin Feige, Ike Perlmutter, what is his name, Joe Esposito, or however you pronounce it, and a couple of these other guys. She's been there all this time. Now, recently, about not even 2 years ago, September of 2021, she was given this new made-up position at Marvel that put her roughly near the same level as Kevin Feige. But what this position did was put her in charge of the post-production for both Marvel television and Marvel movies. And the timing of this was just kind of weird. So there's a lot to go through this. So like the shortest version I can give you is it has been confirmed that she has been fired. She was fired. And the reasonings behind that have been vast, but the two best reasons that I can come to, or at least three actually, because there's kind of, let's say there's two reasons, and the third one is what they used against her to fire her, let's say. The first and foremost obvious one being that basically Marvel has had a problem now for the last 3 years, roughly, since Endgame. Every movie that isn't Spider-Man related has either underperformed or flat out bombed, like Ant-Man did. And Ant-Man will end up losing the studio somewhere between $100 and $200 million when it's all said and done, probably.
Wild.
Like, it's not going to make a dime. So I think that is part of it. The other part of it is she was one of the most vocal leaders of the "Don't Say Gay" situation in Florida, and just over 2 weeks ago, roughly, I think, yeah, roughly that, DeSantis had signed away their tax reliefs and other special luxuries that go along with the Reedy Creek deal. And to me, that is the biggest reason why she was probably let go, is because you can't put a price tag on what that's going to cost the company.
Yeah,
we
need
shit they're going to have to
$1
go
billion.
We need to point out
more.
that Victoria Alonso, so she's a proud Latinx
Yes, I was
woman
going to get
who's
to that, yeah.
who's also gay, and so like she's been very vocal about gay rights issues.
She's me?
And she's also responsible for the shift in Marvel to the more MCU,
Yes.
female-centric, diversity and inclusion style movies and TV shows.
Although
right?
I'm not so sure that had so much to do with her firing as it just did with the other two things. But the reason that is because she went out on stage at a GLAAD ceremony and bragged about sitting Bob Chapek down for 45 minutes. And in other words, putting him in his place about this whole situation. So I have a feeling that she was one of the linchpins in why Chapek didn't stay out of it, because he originally was going to. So that's a big part of it. And yes, she was the one way back when I was saying there's somebody who's pretty high up over at Marvel who will not let them use the term X-Men in the offices anymore. That was who I was talking about. And she has kind of just moved up through into this new position. But it's kind of one of those things now where everybody's kind of asking themselves, was she just promoted so she could be fired? Because now I think that's what she's going to possibly try to use as her argument if she goes to court with this thing. Because what Disney is saying is that she was technically in breach of contract because she was working outside the company. And then the other rumor is that she was told not to be doing any press events whatsoever since the whole GLAAD event. And she broke both of those things because there's this movie she was working on called Argentina 1985 for some other company. And she did some red carpet and press event. And she's claiming that's what they're citing as their reasoning for firing her. So this is going to get messy. This is going to get bloody. We also have on the Lucasfilm side, you also had a very prominent producer also suing Lucasfilm, and Kathleen Kennedy is involved in that. And that's a whole nother thing going on right now. So you've got both of their two biggest properties on two fronts dealing with some really crappy situations right now. And honestly, I think Kevin Feige was just saving his ass at this point. Victoria Alonso was basically, she was the
You think she got scapegoated? Yeah.
I mean, no, she's not innocent. Don't get me wrong, but she definitely took the brunt of this. This is all their faults, right? Like, this is Kevin Feige's fault. This is everybody who's involved with Marvel right now. It's all their faults, but she took the blame for it. But the fact of how high up she is makes you wonder who's going to get let go over at Lucasfilm. Now, I'm not trying to say, oh, Kathleen Kennedy's next. But Victoria Alonso, like if Kathleen Kennedy's here, Victoria Alonso's about like here in her power, right? Like Kevin Feige's right about here, and you got Kathleen Kennedy here. Like, she's pretty high up there. That's a big sacrifice on the part of the Hollywood elite, let's say.
Yeah. So, kind of speaking about that, let's talk a little bit about some of the canceled Star Wars projects. So basically, we had news come out that Damon Lindelof's Star Wars movie that he was working on was actually continuing forward. It wasn't part of like the multitude of canceled Star Wars projects, but it came out like a few days after his interview at South by Southwest that both he and his co-writer for the new Star Wars movie have basically turned in a draft and pieced out. And they were like, we quit. We don't want anything to do with Star Wars. And so now Lucasfilm is bringing on Peaky Blinders creator and head writer Stephen S. DeKnight to come in and basically take over writing duties for the new Star Wars film that Damon Lindelof was previously involved in. And if I know anything about Stephen S. DeKnight, who also was responsible for creating the TV show C on Apple TV, he's probably not going to use anything from Lindelof's draft, which I think is probably a good thing because I think Lindelof is a huge hack. But this is another example of like how Lucasfilm doesn't know how to make Star Wars movies. You know, they keep having these big name creators come on board and then leaving after they shut down their project. So, Kyle, tell me, why is it so hard to make a Star Wars movie?
Oh, it's because, well, canon is so difficult. You've got these really constraining rules that you have to follow, which is why, I don't know, for some reason, a lot of people in writing positions get pulled up and it feels like they don't want to actually tell a story within the universe that they've been asked to write a story in. They want to write their own story and then just try to fit it within the context of whatever they're writing about. Like a recent example is the dreaded Velma series. That apparently was something else beforehand, but they didn't think that it would sell too well. So they just reskinned it with this weird Scooby-Doo skinwalker monstrosity. And there we go. We've got a story.
Well, hey, if you make a bad Velma series, you get rewarded by the president of the United States with a medal, right?
Apparently. But it was the same thing with The Last Jedi. If I could bring that back, Johnson wasn't interested in really telling a Star Wars story. He wanted to tell a World War II story, which is why we had those really idiotic bomber designs at the beginning. That, like, where 3 got taken out by half of a broken TIE fighter. Great spaceship design there. It feels like a lot of the people that are involved these days are more ego driven than they are story driven. They want the glory for themselves without servicing the story or the universe that they're supposed to be working inside of, as long as they can at the end of the day say, look at how great I am.
Right.
So, Matt Vader, do you think that Stephen Eston Knight is just going to do Peaky Blinders in space? Is this going to be the Midnight Sun crime story that Solo kind of set up for us?
I mean, would that even be bad, bro?
I don't know. I think I could watch something like that. I don't know, man. I just don't get excited about this stuff until I actually get a trailer at this point anymore. You know what I mean? I don't know if we're ever going to get another Star Wars movie, even maybe in my lifetime. I mean, who knows? I mean, everything is so bad over there, so messed up, that I just take all of this Star Wars news with all these things that they announce with a grain of salt, because none of them really come to fruition unless it's on a small screen, unless it's made for TV. So, like, I don't know, man. I just don't know. And I don't really honestly care a whole lot at this point until I actually see it in front of me. It's really hard for me to talk about because it's just more dust in the wind, man. None of it matters until I see it. So,
Brian, do they need Terry Matalas over at Lucasfilm?
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
I was about to say that, bro. It's funny because I was interviewing one of the writers, and I'm like, "Hey, listen, if you guys, for whatever reason, don't get more Star Trek, if you are given any opportunity to do A, Stargate, or B, Star Wars, for the fans, please just jump on it. Yeah. Jump on that grenade for us and sort of like get it back on track." And the guy was like, "Oh, are you kidding me? Any opportunity to do any of those franchises, and we're down." But and he's in this, what he said, the baggage that Star Wars has would make it significantly harder to make something that they loved, because I'm sure some people love the current version of Star Wars. I don't, but the baggage that they have, in order to make it something that they loved, it would be easier for them to take another gig, because of how much baggage is attached to this version of Star Wars and how sort of messy everything is.
And in Lindelof's interview at South by Southwest, that's kind of sounded like what he was saying, where he was like, you need to do it either perfectly or not at all, because it's just there's too much there that you have to deal with, right?
Right.
Okay. Now, Tom, what's your take on Lindelof basically bailing after turning in his contractually obligated draft?
What's funny is you keep saying bailing, like he had a choice to leave.
Oh, you think he got fired?
Because if we've learned anything from the history at Lucasfilm, if you'll share what I've got there, this is what I mean when I say Kathleen Kennedy has fired more people than she's hired. I know that makes no sense when I say it, but if you look at this list, you'll see one common denominator here. And what do we constantly hear from everybody? And that is that it is difficult to get anything done there because you're constantly running into problems. And the biggest problem being Miss Kathleen Kennedy. I think he was booted. I think that whatever he turned in was not up to their specifications or snuff, and he ran into some problems with Kathy or whoever else at the upper ring of people, and then maybe said, "Fuck this shit, I'm out." That's very possible, but otherwise, I think he was given the boot.
Well, you
the
know,
funny thing is,
go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, of course, he wants to save some kind of face either way, but like the other weird thing is as you mentioned, he left, his writing partner left, the director stayed. So if and when this project ever comes to fruition, unless it says story originally by Damon Lindelof and what's his name, it's a completely new project at this point. Like, it's not even the same movie, because this was what it was being touted as in the first place, was the Damon Lindelof Star Wars project. So now it's no longer that. It's the Stephen DeKnight Star Wars project. So it's almost they just moved the director over to this now or something, basically. But
I thought that he might have been producing it, but I guess not. But what's funny is Damon Lindelof, like, you know, he was a protege of J.J. Abrams. He was a friend. He worked with J.J. on the Star Trek franchise.
Wrote on the Star Trek films, yeah.
And we've heard rumors for a long time that J.J. and Kathleen Kennedy were at odds with each other constantly. Do you think that, Tom, that, you know, Lindelof's association with J.J. Abrams might have had something to do with his exit?
Possibly. I mean, sorry, I had to deal with something. The cat was being a jerk as usual. Possibly. I mean, here's the other side of it too. JJ has become persona non grata, it seems like, in Hollywood now. Because we've pointed out that it seems that a lot of the studios have noticed that the only one who seems to make any money off these J.J. Abrams deals is J.J. Abrams.
Funny, because I say the same thing all the time.
Yeah, so like it's come to a point where maybe that's why they gave him the heave-ho, because notice that like the Benioff and Weiss thing, they were all hopped up and on board and ready to go forward with their Star Wars thing, and as soon as the last few episodes hit and that went to shit, Kathy gave them the boot. So, like, she is clearly somebody who's not afraid to just say adios, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but at the same time, what you have here is you don't even have a revolving door anymore, as pointed out by Mr. H. It's just a door that you're just kicking people out, and the other side of it, there's a lot of people who don't even want to come in. They're like, how many creatives have we heard now when they've been asked about Star Wars? Are like, oh, I'd love to work on Star Wars, just as Brian was pointing out earlier, but I don't want to deal with the internal politics.
Yeah.
Right.
It's almost like they're telegraphing to us what it's like to work for Lucasfilm. So in that respect, I know it's a nightmare from what I've heard over there. I can't imagine if I'm somebody who's actually working on a project there, not knowing, because none of the films have come to fruition since Rise of Palpatine, whatever you want to call it. Rise of Palpatine, right? None. Not a single one of them. And it's been how many years since then now? That was 2019 or 20? Which one? 19, right?
Right.
Crazy.
And going back to the Mandalorian thing, part of the reason I kind of checked out is the last episode of season 2 felt like a climax to me. Like, sure, there's a few loose ends, but at this point, if you're going to keep bringing the baby back into the mix, what the hell you got here? And that's kind of what Lucasfilm is like. They're like just kind of meandering in this. Well, we're trying to bank on what little we do have that works. Obi-Wan Kenobi fell flat on its freaking face, and that should have been the biggest thing that they've had on Disney Plus ever.
Absolutely should have been the biggest thing.
And it was kind of, and this is what's sad about Picard season 3, because I always compare Picard and Obi-Wan, because Picard was the moment, and Brian will get what I'm saying, because we've been reporting on Star Trek for years, and we're just like, the only time people started paying attention is when they announced Jean-Luc Picard is coming back.
Yep.
And about roughly between 3 and 4 million people started tuning in for the Picard, and they quickly tuned the F out, because they're like, what the hell happened? And we're like, we tried telling you guys this is what was going on there. And so pretty much the audience moved away.
I can back that up too, like with our views. Like whenever we did a doc where it was like talking about the industry or whatever of Star Trek, it got good views. If we ever did a doc where it was like the history of a show that was already loved, Voyager, Stargate, whatever, it got good views. whenever we did anything about current Star Trek, unless it was a video that was trying to fix something, as in like come up
Right.
with a theory that can course correct. Those videos did well, but everything just reporting on like Strange New Worlds or Discovery, or whatever, or regular Picard never did well. The views started to go up though when they announced Picard, is when all of our back catalogs started getting views again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's
But
wild.
my point
quick-
to that was people tuned into Picard and they saw what they had done. It was the same thing with Obi-Wan. Because I noticed a lot of people were like, whenever I'd go out with my Baby Yoda shirt or whatever on, because I was pretty early into it. I admit it, I fell for it. And they're like, oh, they're the Baby Yoda thing. We love that. The kids love that. It's like, oh, what do you think of the show? And they're like, oh, we haven't watched the show. So like, it was like an average of about 9 out of 10 people that I would run into that would go, oh, goo goo gaga over my shirt or whatever. They'd never actually watched the freaking show.
Right,
So
yeah.
what people did though is people did tune in for Obi-Wan and notice the backlash that came out of that. Like that was almost TLJ level type shit because people actually tuned in and they tuned out real quick because they're like, this is garbage. And that's kind of where everybody's at right now with the Star Wars stuff. They've used up what little goodwill they have. And that's where I agree with the whole, like, which one could be fixed right now? Definitely not Star Wars. Star Trek has a hell of a lot more chance of it. But anyway, you were saying, Matt, I'm sorry.
That's okay. We got a super chat from Denny Wright for $4.99. Salty merch suggestion. Molded impressions of Vader's magnificent beard. Its magnificence is overwhelming. It's a nice beard, though. LOL.
It is pretty
I like its
magnificent.
wave.
Not gonna
I
lie.
think it's very wavy.
Vader, people are
Very
saying
wavy.
that it's catching the blue light in your studio.
Yeah,
it is.
And, looking like a fancy blue beard.
We're gonna
Right
call
on.
you Bluebeard. No, go back to the
Whatever.
blue.
It's automatic, dude.
Aw.
I don't know how to turn it off.
Commander Bluebeard.
Yes. Real quick, guys. If you want to be entered for the wallet giveaway, just type in hashtag Salty Saturday in the chat. And if you want to help support the show, just go to shop.exter.com and type in the Popcast on checkout. It'll help you get 25% off your order. And everyone who drops super chats of $10 or more gets entered into the raffle to win the extra wallet. But before we get out of here, we're going to have one more topic that we're going to cover. And that is Rian Johnson's Star Wars canceled?
Yeah.
And this has been something that has been making the rounds for a number of years. But a obscure UK gossip rag came out. And according to their sources, they said that Rian Johnson's Star Wars trilogy has been scrapped by Disney. This is an exclusive, and it was making the rounds on Twitter the past couple of days on the heels of Damon Lindelof stepping away from his Star Wars project. And because we haven't heard much about this project in a while, and Rian Johnson has moved on to his Knives Out franchise and his new TV show Poker Face, a lot of people are speculating that basically he's given up on Star Wars and he's not going to be in it anymore. But again, this comes from an unnamed source, and it's pretty much just speculation from what I can tell. But I wanted to get the panel's take on this. Matt Vader 74, do you think Rian Johnson's trilogy is actually scrapped?
I think every Star Wars movie is basically scrapped right now. But man, wouldn't it be nice to get some confirmation of this?
Oh yeah, that'd be
I mean,
great,
this
dude.
this motherfucker destroyed Star Wars. He destroyed Star Wars. All of the fan split, all of the nonsense, can be traced back to his god awful piece of crap Star Wars movie that he made. That's where it all started. I was okay with the Force Awakens. That wasn't a terrible movie. It wasn't great, but at least it was something that they should have been able to step off of and keep telling a fun story.
Right.
Yeah.
He took Star Wars and turned it into some weird thing and just destroyed it. And they kept doubling down on it. And you know, it's just, I mean, to this day, I won't watch a Knives Out product. I won't. I will not support a Rian Johnson movie. And I know you like it, and you can, but I just can't. If there's anybody in Hollywood that I just cannot stand, it's Rian Johnson, and I just refuse to support his things. And if this is true, then that is fantastic. If we could get confirmation, I would do like a 24-hour live stream celebration stream that I would have every YouTuber on the that, come in and go, yay, woo, you know, it would just be, it would be awesome. But, you know, again, this is sources from some little website, wherever it's from. And, you know, we could write the same thing and put it on saltynerd.com. And
I mean, this is Grace Randolph's style of reporting, which is basically take something that's very obvious,
right,
attribute it to an unnamed source, and say like, "Oh, it's actually happening."
Yeah. But yeah, I hope it is. I hope it's real.
That's what Giant Freaking Robot does the same exact thing.
I want some confirmation so we can have a giant fandom menace party.
So
that's what I want to do.
I wanted to ask you, so basically, you know, I'm a big fan of mysteries, Agatha Christie, you know, all the cozy mystery style books. And Rian Johnson, after the Star Wars debacle, he kind of moved into the realm of like mystery movies with like Knives Out, and then like he had Glass Onion, and now he's got this TV show Poker Face, which is basically like a mystery of the week type thing. But I feel like, you know, after watching those, it's all a big scam because they're not actually mysteries. Like he basically does the thing where he shows you the crime in every episode of Poker Face and like midway through each of his like Knives Out movies. And so like there's really no mystery involved in it because he's not smart enough to actually craft a good mystery, right? So he just tells you what the crime is, he shows it to you, and then the rest of the movie is just like, okay, how's the person covering up the crime, or how's, you know, the detective figuring out the crime, or something like that. And it's basically the lazy way of writing a mystery where you position it as a mystery, but it's really just a crime story. So I wanted to get your take on Rian Johnson's writing style because like he was the one behind writing The Last Jedi, which Vader pointed out basically destroyed fandom for Star Wars and started, you know, Lucasfilm's slippery slope downwards with the Star Wars franchise. But he's also gone off and basically proven that he's like a hack over and over again, but he's really good at hiding that fact. So I wanted to get your take on this.
Rian Johnson strikes me as the sort who is much more interested in appearing intelligent or trying to show off rather than actually telling a good story. He's just another in a long slew of writers who want to have a particular reputation but don't want to do the work to actually earn it. If you want an excellent series of mysteries, I would highly recommend anything by Ruth Ware. She is the modern day answer to Agatha Christie. Rian Johnson, however, like everything that he does, it is in service of screwing with the audience and not in a fun way. Ruth Ware will give you a series of clues in her stories. We'll say, and we'll typically attach it to a character. I just finished reading her latest, The It Girl. Excellent book, by the way, where you have a girl who's murdered in college, and then 10 years later, there's some speculation that maybe the guy they thought killed her was innocent. And you get some scenes from the past where you get all the, you get the girl, you get the creepy guy they thought who murdered her, you know, the victim, all her friends. And then 10 years later, you get to see where all the friends are. And you get these, you get red herrings, you get clues, you get everything you need for a proper mystery. I thought I figured that story out like 20% of the way in, and I was completely wrong. And I love that I was completely wrong because everything made sense in the end. The problem, and I know that's a bit of a tangent there, I'm sorry. The problem with the way that Johnson writes his stories is that he's much more interested in, I believe the concept is called bathos, where he tries to inject humor in moments in order to offset the otherwise drama of the moment. And he tries to, he of course, he's the guy that we got Subvert Your Expectations from, which, can we be honest and just say that that's the rebranded version of saying what a twist? He tries, sorry, I'm almost done. He tries to set this up to fool the audience to say, look at how clever I am, when really all he's doing is getting high off of his own supply.
Yeah. It's the sheer, you know, mark of a very bad writer, essentially.
And the arrogance. That's the part that pisses me off the most. When he is so proud of what he's done, and it's like, dude, half the people who saw your movie hate you now. Like, as Vader just said, he won't watch anything with your name on it. I am in the same boat. I haven't seen any of the Knives Out movies, and I don't want to.
Yeah. Real quick, I just want to address this. Whiskey Jack says, isn't that what Stephen King does, though, Kadish? Stephen King's not a mystery writer. Basically, Ryan Johnson's positioning his movies and TV shows as mysteries, but they're not actually mysteries. And everyone's like, oh, they're so brilliant. And it's like, no, they're not. They really are. In fact, he uses a lot of tricks to try to trick you from figuring out certain things. So, like, you can't play fair in a mystery if like you're withholding facts from the audience, right? Because he wants it to be a surprise. He wants to subvert your expectations by not giving you all the facts and clues that you need to figure it out for yourself. So he's basically cheating.
Or Kadish, you could just do what he did in his last movie and just tell you exactly what happened about halfway through.
That's the Knives Out formula, right?
Right.
It's like it's a mystery up until the midway point, at which point, he reveals exactly like what happened.
Wait. Is this the ending? What?
So Brian, I wanted to basically point out the fact that Ryan Johnson kind of started the whole attack the fan strategy with Lucasfilm when he started getting a lot of pushback on The Last Jedi. His response was, and Lucasfilm basically circled the wagons against him, or around him, was to basically start toxifying the fan base. He called them man babies, called them basement dwellers. Basically, anyone who had any legitimate criticism about his movie, he was vilifying on his Twitter account. He was forcing Lucasfilm and the actors involved in the movies to basically come out and call every critic racist, sexist, homophobic, bigoted, what have you. And then he walked away because he didn't want to deal with the fandom anymore. So he started these like new Knives Out franchises, and they're so lucrative because like he's able to make them super cheap. He's able to pre-sell the rights based off of the cast that he gets, and he makes way more money and has a lot more creative control over the Knives Out franchise than he ever did with Star Wars. So it makes sense that maybe he'd want to walk away from all the headaches of dealing with a Star Wars movie. But do you think that he could put aside his ego and not put his stamp? Because basically, like, he would have free reign to do his own trilogy, according to Kathleen Kennedy, right? So he could do whatever he wanted. He wouldn't be constrained to, like, have to wait until J.J. Abrams tells him, like, what to do.
Yeah, here's the issue with that. He didn't wait when he made 8. He wasn't even aware of how 7 was ending. So, like, when he approached Kathleen, and this is on record, when he approached Kathleen Kennedy about it, she was like, just make your vision. He wasn't even aware of the proper ending. When he first started doing 8, he didn't even know what the ending of 7 was yet, right? And she encouraged him to do it how he wanted to do it, his vision. That's the problem with that's as in regards to Star Wars. The fact that she's so heavy on pleasing the creatives that she doesn't do any Kevin Feigeing or whatever you want to call it of Star Wars, and that's why there's so many problems with 8 and then 9. 8 put a giant wrench in the machine, and 9 just couldn't recover from it, in my opinion, because he did it his way. That was literally his vision, and he didn't even know what the whole story yet for 7 was until midway through.
I don't think he cared.
Hey, he probably didn't, but he did at one point ask her, and he said, to her credit, she said, "Make it my way." It's like, okay, that's not her credit. That's a bad thing, bro.
Yeah. Now, Tom, you and I have been speculating for years as to the status of
Schrodinger's trilogy.
Yeah, exactly. Do you think that at this point it's safe to say that this thing's dead and it's never going to go forward?
I mean, we're getting closer and closer to because I don't know, you and I have probably had this very conversation probably half a dozen times where we flat out said that it's going to be one of those things that never happens. And then about 5 years after the fact from now, which we're getting close to that point now from probably our original conversations, you're going to have an interview with Ryan Johnson. They're going to ask him once again, like they do every 6 months, what's going on with your Star Wars trilogy? And he's going to say, look, I've gone so far past that now. I'm so wrapped up in my series and I'm working on more Knives Out. I just don't see myself having the time for it. And that'll be like one of the last times they talk about it, because at that point people will start to realize, oh, this really is not going to happen. Because let's face it, it's not going to happen. Because you guys are right. This guy started all the problems with the franchise to begin with, and they're stupid by now if they haven't figured that out. I mean, I've said it time and time again. The Last Jedi and The Rise of Skywalker were basically the world's most expensive Twitter war between directors.
All right.
Because you had J.J. Abrams who set it up, and Matt's right. It's not perfect, but you had a foundation to build on. But the reason why Kathleen Kennedy was all like, go ahead, Johnson, do whatever you want, is because he was all for snuffing out Luke Skywalker, and so was she.
Of course, dude.
And on the other side, and I'm not so sure that, see, because that's the thing, J.J. Abrams and her supposedly butt heads a lot too. And that was where Mark Hamill lost all faith in this crap, because his whole thing was, he was told, was that Luke Skywalker was being built up for this grand entrance from J.J. Abrams. He's like, because I went from being in like one final scene to no words to barely being in the movie, to where I'm sitting here asking myself in the script reading, why am I here? Right? Was basically what Mark Hamill had said. And I'm sure as soon as he learned what they were doing with his character in The Last Jedi, that's where he's like, well, what the fuck is this? They built me up like I'm some grand, even bigger than they did Obi-Wan Kenobi.
I know.
In the Force Awakens. So you're expecting him to show up, and it is like, Luke 2.0, because we haven't seen how badass he is yet. And what is he? He's worse of a hermit and a Kermit than fucking Obi-Wan ever was. And you're like, what the hell is this crap? So yeah, and then Ryan, and to JJ's credit, this is the only time I'll give him a little bit of credit. He tried to give Luke a little bit back in the Rise of Palpatine, but at that point, everything was lost. Right? They should have went with the Trevorrow script. We all know it. All they had to do was flip-flop Luke and Leia. That's all you had to do. And Johnson, and this is what we've heard, he asked Johnson kindly, please, for the love of God, don't kill Luke. You can kill Leia if you have to, oddly, because it makes sense, because we don't have the actress anymore, and he had a year to do it. It's not like it happened yesterday and today they got to release the movie. No, they had over a year to fix that.
In a year, yeah. The decisions are just like ludicrous.
Yes, and that boils down to
many
Kathleen
things
Kennedy
pointing.
again. Yeah.
Do this, fix that, and everyone, it's like the decisions they're making are intentionally bad. Because I can't see any reason for these decisions and these story points to. Nothing about it is logical. Nothing about it makes sense for the company. Doesn't save any money. Are they able to make more merchandise? Like, what's the point of all this? All of this makes. You have, dude, I'm sorry, Mark Hamill he's an older guy, but he's not that old. I would even say you got another 20 years with this dude.
He would have played Luke Skywalker until he croaked on set.
Yes, dude. And meanwhile, you got Patrick Stewart, who's like 113.
And he'd have been dying and been like, film it, use it. Like at the last break.
Right. Yeah. You would have used my dad.
Totally.
Yeah, you're totally right. Like, what a mistake that is, dude.
I actually think that the reason Kathleen Kennedy decided to give Rian Johnson a trilogy is because he's the only director that she worked with who actually brought stuff in on time and on budget without any production headaches.
She didn't fight with, yeah.
Yeah, everyone else that she hired was just like a complete mess, and she had to like deal with like the fallout from that. So she was like, "Oh, this guy works really well. Let me give him more work to do," I would be happy if they just came out and said that Rian Johnson's trilogy is never going to happen, because like Vader said, like this guy more than anyone else is responsible for the crappy state that Star Wars fandom is in. He literally split the fandom and then turned them against each other. And it's never recovered. It hasn't recovered since. And it's a shame. All right, guys, are you ready to pick a winner for today's raffle? All right, so we have 11 entries. Let's see who is going to be the one who is entered for the grand prize.
While we're waiting, I'll say this much. We will never hear what you just said. They'll never come out and say Rian Johnson's never getting a trilogy. Hey, Mighty Orbots!
Hey, Mighty Orbots, you are now in the drawing for a free extra wallet. We're going to be entering you. We're going to be entering you in at the end of our commitment to extra wallets to win the raffle. So thank you very much for
participating. What is that raffle thing? Where did you get that?
Oh, it's StreamYard's giveaway software. If you have a StreamYard's account, it's free. You can use it. Yeah, it's very cool. All right, guys. So that was it for this episode of Salty Saturday Mornings. I want to thank my expert panel of nerds for being here. Tom Connors from Midnight's Edge. Do you have any final thoughts, and where can people find out more about you?
No, just thanks for having me as always. You can find me at Midnight's Edge After Dark. I've always got something going on. I'm a busy man, so I'm sure you'll find me somewhere.
All right. Kyle from Crimson Rogue, I just want to say how fantastic your channel is. I love watching your videos. I love the fact that you read books I would never read and then make videos about them so I don't have to read them. For those of you out there who have not checked out the Crimson Rogue channel, be sure to subscribe to it. Give Kyle all your love and attention because he is a fantastic creator. I'm very honored that he decided to come on board for today's episode. Kyle, do you have any final thoughts, and where can people find out more about you?
Real quick, you forgot to compliment my hair.
And your hair. It used to be longer, though. So
Donated it. Wigs for kids, everybody. Anyway, yeah, like Kate said, I've got my YouTube channel, Crimson Rogue. Same thing with Twitter, @Crimson Rogue. I don't post as much as I would like, but I am putting a lot of effort into the videos that I do produce. Like I said at the start of the stream, my current project is about 6.5 hours long. So
Oh my God.
if anyone has a really boring day job stocking shelves or something, I'm going to give you something to listen to for your entire shift.
What is it about?
I'm reviewing Lightlark, which gained a lot of popularity on TikTok and really did not live up to the hype. It is one of the most overcomplicated. The reason it's such a long review isn't because I've got, and it's going to be longer. This is probably going to be over 7 hours by the time I'm done with it.
Wow.
But the reason it's so long is because the plot is the most needlessly overcomplicated thing. It sets up so many things that I have to explain in order to, for you to understand why later things don't make sense. I'm going to stop myself before I go on a tangent, and we'll be here an extra 10 minutes.
Yeah.
It is a disaster, and you got to check out the video to see why.
Yeah, but Kyle also has a series called The Book Was Better, where he compares movie adaptations from book to movie. Fantastic series. Do you have any of those episodes planning on coming out anytime soon?
Actually, I do have a bit of a gap coming up because E.L. James has deigned to torture us. The creator of 50 Shades of Grey. She's coming up with a sequel to her last book. This one is called The Misses. It continues the misadventure of British aristocracy and sex trafficking in The Mister. But it's not going to be out until June, so I got to work on something else in the meantime. Probably going to bring back The Book Was Better, so I can finally finish off the Twilight series with Breaking Dawn.
Nice.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'll watch
you
that
guys-
because I don't want to reread the
Yeah.
books.
If you guys are fans of movies and adaptations, definitely check out Kyle's series. The Book Was Better. He actually plays multiple different roles in the show, which is very entertaining. Brian from the Popcast, any final thoughts, and where can people find out more about you guys?
No final thoughts. Get ready for next week. Picard next week is going to be good. There's a lot of exposition next week. There's a lot of explaining, less action or whatever, but it's still good. And my review for this week is actually going up in the next 3 minutes on our main channel. So go check it out.
Nice.
And what do you guys got planned for Raw Rant on Monday?
Ooh, Raw Rant. We have, thank you. God damn it, man. I'm so bad at this, bro. We have Kirk Avocado. I forgot his last name.
Acevedes?
Acevedes, yeah, thank you. The guy that plays Kryn in Picard. We have him coming on. It's gonna be great, and of
Awesome.
course, Salty Matt as well.
Yeah.
It's gonna be awesome. He's coming on, and we're hoping to also get Trekyard guys on at some point. There's a lot of that. I'm gonna be setting that stream up later on tonight, so you'll be able to see the whole lineup.
Awesome. And real quick, I just want to remind everyone to support not only the Salty Nerd, but also the Popcast by going to shop.extra.popcast or .com/thepopcast so that you can get that 25% off an extra wallet. And they are our sponsor for the next couple of weeks, so we appreciate you guys showing them some love. Matt Vader 74, any final thoughts? And what do we got going on the Salty Nerd channel?
What do we got going on? I'm trying not to have a Twitch moment and throw my cat across the room and get in trouble. So this is Louie, everybody. If you haven't met him before, he's kind of a pain sometimes. He's going around destroying everything. What do we have going on? We have a review of the 1980s classic First Blood. Sylvester Stallone, his first movie as a Rambo, which is
it's a controversial review too, isn't it?
Why is it controversial? Who hated it and who do I have to hate now?
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. We're having some internal conflict in the studio when this thing comes out. It's pretty wild. But that's coming out next week. We have a video coming out. We have a video coming out in the next couple of weeks where we took a deep dive into the cancellation of redheads in Hollywood. That was kind of fun.
You want to tell people about our
Tuesday live streams? And our Young E video came out yesterday. That's a fun little South Korean movie, sci-fi, artificial intelligence. Got some weird ethical conundrum questions going on in this movie. So, and that's fun. South Korea, man, they got some good movies coming out. So yeah, that's where it's at. So, yeah.
And check out our next live stream, which is Tuesdays around 1 o'clock, 1:30 time frame, Pacific time. I also want to thank everyone who participated in chat, and special thanks to everyone who sent us super chats this episode. Mexican Iron Man, The Astro Nerd Boy, Fluffy Panda, JT Gunn, Whiskey Jack, and Dennis Wright. We really thank you for your support, but a huge shout out and super big thanks to Scotty Dub for his $200 super chat. He's going to have his name in the top super chat position next week. Scotty, your support means the world to us. Everyone's support means the world to us, but the fact that you're so generous every week really humbles us, and we want to thank you. And another special shout out to Mighty Orbots for winning the raffle. He will be going into the finalist round at the end of our extra wallet promotion. And I just want to thank everyone for tuning in, and basically, stay salty, everyone. We hope you had a good time with this. And next week, we're going to be having Dave Cullen on the show to talk more Star Trek Picard and all that good stuff. So thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
We just threw away our old wallets. Want to know why? Because we just discovered the most efficient smart wallet in the world. Exter has revolutionized the wallet, and we will never go back to bifold. We are so impressed. Exter wallets are super slim and sleek. They are half the size of a conventional bifold wallet. Compact and modular, they hold 12 cards or more plus cash. And that means no more stuffing that bulky, worn-out bifold wallet into your back pocket. Forget sitting on that uncomfortable lump and slide Exter into your front pocket instead. This high-quality wallet combines Italian leather, space-grade aluminum, and carbon fiber. Plus, it includes built-in RFID blocking to protect you from wireless theft. And you know how hard it can be to replace all of your cards if your wallet is stolen. Exter includes a tracking card to help you keep an eye on your belongings with a map, and you can even ring it for location assistance. This is the last wallet you'll ever buy. To get an Exter wallet like ours, visit shop.exter.com/thepopcast. Get 25% off your order when you use code THEPOPCAST at checkout. Join the wallet revolution and upgrade your quality of life with Exter today.